All right. Hello, YouTube. This is Dark Tower Palaver. This is our podcast for the Dark Tower series, Stephen King's magnum opus. And we're here for our last show of the year, the year-end bash, which is something we've been doing yearly for, I don't even know, pretty much since the beginning, I think.
I think so.
If not the beginning. So we've been doing this for 6 or so years. And yeah, year-end bash is always just a fun little show we do for our last show at the end of the year. Tends to be right around this time period, a week or so before Christmas. And yeah, so going to be a fun episode. These are actually more interactive, even more so than our normal episodes. As we have, like right now in the live chat, we have some people, which is a normal thing, but we also, for the year-end bash, we do call-ins. So we will open that up in just a second as soon as we actually start the episode. Let me see. I was actually going to put the Skype thing on this slide, but looks like I forgot the title slide. I did it on all the others though, so
okay.
We'll have that. But yeah, so this is the last show for 2021. So let's go ahead and hit the intro and then get started.
Yeah.
The Dark Tower by Stephen King. The man in black fled across the desert, and the gunslinger followed. Go then. There are other worlds than these. Death, but not for you, gunslinger. It's time we had our own Palaver, I think, and it's going to take a while.
And yet, dauntless, the slug horn to my lips I set, and blew. Child Roland to the Dark Tower came.
We are content, one from many. Let the Palaver begin.
Hello and welcome to Dark Tower Palaver. This is our podcast covering Stephen King's magnum opus, the Dark Tower series. My name is Tad.
And I'm Peter.
And we're here for Roundtable 114, which is a special episode. This is our year-end bash for 2021. We were just kind of giving an intro to the YouTube people as well. And yeah, we just covered that, we kind of do these at the end of the year. Pretty much we've always kind of saw this as kind of the free-for-all show where we open up the quote-unquote phone lines and allow people to call in and be part of the show. So these are always a lot of fun. So yeah, this is that's what we're going to be doing for this episode. But I have, of course, prep a normal show just in case no one calls. I think that's only happened once. But let's go ahead and hit the intro stuff real quick first. This is a roundtable, so we want to warn you about spoilers. If you haven't finished the 7 primary books of the Dark Tower series, you may want to not listen to this episode because chances are something will get spoiled for you. Whether it's something toward the very end of the series or whether it's something midway through. If you're meandering through book 3 like we are in our book club episodes, this would be a very, very dangerous episode to be listening to. I would venture a guess. And it's, again, never that we ever plan it. Whenever we have to do at least one, cataclysmic spoiler per episode, it just comes up in conversation. So if that's your final warning, that it'll be spoilers here. But if you stick to our book club episodes, on those probably 95% of those episodes are spoiler free. We stay where we're at or before. We don't jump ahead. We've just recently added something to those episodes where at the very end we have a spoiler section, but we make sure that that's super isolated and we don't it's very contained, so you're able to listen up to that certain point. We'll warn you, then you can peace out if you haven't finished the whole series. So those are your safe episodes if you have not finished the series yet. Once you finish the series, then jump on into these roundtables. If you want to find us, you can find us a number of places, including Apple Podcasting. You can find us stream us on Spotify or Stitcher, as well as any podcasting services. I've actually been seeing a lot of stuff with Spotify recently, and I'm kind of wondering, I might actually be switching to Spotify for podcasting. Because they do those year-end review things, and I saw Dan Carlin tweeted a bunch of stuff where people were tweeting it showed the amount of hours they listen to podcasts, and Hardcore History is obviously one that tends to get a lot of listening hours. And I just whether it's the stats like that or even just kind of bringing it under the same umbrella as where I listen to my music. I just kind of wonder if, I don't know, I haven't decided yet, but I'm kind of thinking about it. If nothing else, solidify down to one app.
To one app instead of using it, because you use Podcast Addicts, right?
I do, yeah, for podcasts. But yeah, and it's kind of nice. I like Spotify. I've used it for podcasting a bit, and it's pretty nice. But it's funny, I haven't listened to a lot, so when I had my year-end review thing, the podcasting was like, this is your top show, and it's like the only show that I listen to an episode of, and I only listen to like one episode, but it's like, that's your top one. But yeah, it was fun, but that's definitely a thought I've had. Then if you want to subscribe, rate, and review us on any of those services, we'd appreciate that. It always helps the show get exposure. If you want to find the show notes, you can do that at darktowerpalaver.com. That's our website where we have our show notes for every episode, kind of the articles that we cover, pictures we cover, whatever we cover in the episode. You'll find links to the actual articles and stuff there, as well as we have things like our new questions for new listeners. Those are things that we found early on as kind of introductory things for people to introduce themselves as constant listeners to our show. And those are just great questions. You can answer one of them. You can answer all of them. Find anything there. It's kind of a good little primer for like maybe an intro email. Yeah. So find all that over there at darktowerpalaver.com, as well as pretty much every link that connects to everything Dark Tower Palaver. We have all kinds of different avenues to engage with us, and that has all the links there. You can also support the show on patreon.com/darktowerpalaver. We just had our last hangout of the year yesterday, and that was a lot of fun. And yeah, that's a fun place, as well as on the Discord. As I always say, the best tease there is that you're able to stab Peter in the heart throughout the week. You don't have to wait for an episode.
Did you send out the blast on social media for the episode?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't do it on Patreon. I actually forgot about that one, or on Discord. I'm sorry. But yeah, Discord server. That's a lot of fun. Just kind of whether we talk about Dark Tower stuff, Stephen King stuff, or any kind of stuff. It's just a fun little thing that we have. Basically in between episodes and stuff like that. Then if you want to contact us, you can do that in a number of ways that Peter can let you know.
Best way is to email us. It's darktowerpalaver@gmail.com. All of our shows are here on YouTube. It's youtube.com/darktowerpalaver. Make sure to like the videos, subscribe, ring the bell to get notifications for when we're going live. And then our social media is facebook.com/darktowerpalaver. Our Twitter is @darktowerpod. That's @darktowerpod. Then we have our Instagram. It's darktowerpalaver, all one word, no spaces. And then our merchandise available is at TeePublic. There is a link on our website. It's a little box on there on our website. But also, if you just want to go directly to there, it's teepublic.com/user/darktowerpalaver. We got the two different options. You got the primary logo, like what Tad's got on. And then you got the better one, which is, hashtag Tad is terrible, like I'm wearing.
The slanderous one.
And there is any number of different merchandise available. Like I got a sticker. Tad's got his pillow around here somewhere. You can get a mask. You can get hoodies, T-shirts, tank tops.
Yeah.
Any number of different things on there. It's great. They have sales all the freaking time now. Seems like every other day I get a notification that TeePublic has a sale.
Yeah.
T-shirts go for like $14 when they're on sale. So yeah, it's fantastic.
They kind of give me a heads up a lot of times, and generally speaking, it's like twice a month they do sales. Generally, I think. But I always like see those emails too late half the time. But yes, they do send those emails. I'm kind of getting to be one of those people that don't keep up on my inbox very well. Like I'll just jump in there every so often and clean out 200 and 300 emails and don't and it's wait till it's 200-300 deep again before I go through it again. I'm kind of I'm getting bad at the emails.
Are you?
Yeah. So that's the intros.
So before we get into anything, I realize that we call this our year-end bash. I propose a name change. I think we should call it the Winter Festival in honor of the festivals that are named in the Dark Tower series.
What like
It's called the Winter Festival. I looked it up. There's different festivals, so they have White Earth, Sowing, Midsummer, Full Earth, Reaping, and Year's End. So there's Year-End Festival or Winter Festival. Yeah. So we could kind of pick and choose whichever name we want. But I think we should. For Dark Tower Palaver, we should name it Year-End Festival. Like the Reaping Festival is one of them. Reaping Festival, Year-End Festival. So.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got to remember it, because
we'll have to remember for next time.
Yeah, the next one
a year from now.
The next one's a year from now, so we'll have to definitely remember that. But yeah, I actually don't even know where Year-End Bash came from. I think it was just like an off the cuff thing that
I think it's one of the things. I think it's one of the things that you just said like the very first time we did it, and I'm just like,
it's just stuck.
Right.
Yeah.
Year's End. Yeah, that's
I mean,
the Year's End festival.
It seems to fit, certainly. And as I said, I kind of alluded to before we went live, or before we went on the podcast side, but when we were live on YouTube, is this is a call-in show. So if you have us on Skype, you can pretty much call us anytime during this episode. I prepped a normal episode in case no one calls, but if you want to be part of the show, just give us a ring on Skype, and you can be part of the show for a bit. And unfortunately, I swear to God, I put one on this front tile. I'm kind of wondering if I accidentally like duplicated it and then put one on it and then accidentally hid the wrong one. Because I have to, or like skip, because like that's what I, just behind the scenes, that's how I deal with like, things. I don't have a different slideshow for like book clubs versus roundtables. It's all the same damn thing. I just hide or skip slides.
Stuff. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I must have accidentally clicked the wrong one. But of course, our Skype is just Dark Tower Palaver with no spaces. So if you want to be part of the,
so it is on the slide. It's just Dark Tower Palaver right there. Just squish it together.
Yeah, but the rest of the slides we have, I have a little thing on there showing the handle. Yeah, the handle for Skype. So yeah, if you want to be part of the show, you can do that, as well as you guys are in the chat. You guys are part of the show anyway. That's certainly when we first started these, it was obviously very different to have listeners part of the show outside of like maybe emails. So to have people kind of more live was very unique. But now obviously with YouTube, we have people in the chat here live. But that's definitely awesome. Yeah. I have to give a shout out to Cody here. He says, before you guys started the selfie videos, I pictured you guys as a mixture of Jeff Albertson from The Simpsons, which I have to commend him for using the real name there. Because do you know who that is?
Is a comic book guy?
It is. Yeah. That's his real name. And Jay and Silent Bob. So
I thought I knew who it was, but I definitely know Jay and Silent Bob. I know them very well.
Yeah. I just love the giving the real name for comic book guy. He's a great character,
and his real name is Comic Book Guy. That's his legally given name.
No, not like Mole Man, where they actually made his name Mole Man.
Like on his driver's license and everything.
Hans Mole Man. But yes, we've definitely kind of heard variations on what people thought we looked like before we started the cameras, and I think they've kind of fallen generally in the same realm.
Yep.
So I think it's probably just it is one of those weird things, though. It's like that when I remember even as a young kid, I'd listen to like talk radio on the way to school or whatever. Not talk radio, but like what do you call like the
DJs,
the morning zoo
morning
type
shows.
Stuff. And we'd listen to those with my parents and stuff driving to school, and it was always like the weirdest thing when you finally saw them, and it's like, no.
Yeah, I saw the one of the big ones that we had here in Utah. They finally had it on a billboard one time, and I was like, that's what they look like?
Yeah, it's like, no. And also Dan Carlin was that way too.
Oh, I don't even know what he looks like. You know, I'm not even... We're good. I've
gotten used to him though. Like it totally fits. But I think it's actually weird. I think I actually just placed like almost kind of a radio guy type image to him. And I guess he's not too far off of that, but it's of course just not exactly what you picture.
Yeah,
but,
right.
You should look it up.
You want me to look it up? You want to do this to me?
But let me go ahead and jump on the calendar real quick. So this is our last episode of the year, as I mentioned.
What the hell?
Not what you expected?
No, I pictured Bill Denbrough.
Oh.
Like the guy who plays Bill in the miniseries. You know, balding up here.
Oh.
A little bit longer in the back, graying, stuff like that. That is not what I picture for Dan Carlin. Holy hell.
So then jumping into 2022, though, we will be jumping back into the show on the 15th of January is when Roundtable 115 will be. And then we'll have one on the 29th as well. So we'll have 2 episodes in January. So there's a little bit of a break between this episode and the first episode of 2022. And it just usually depends on how the calendar falls. Sometimes we end up with almost no break.
I don't think we had one this year.
I think
we went straight into the new episode.
Yeah, it pretty much fell right where we didn't have any kind of extended break. But yeah, this time we do. It's just kind of how the calendar falls. It always seems that we land the shows to go every other week. We land it in one way and it misses everything we need them to miss. So it's just a matter of how that all lines up year to year. But
anniversaries, birthdays, holidays,
Yeah, but that's what we're looking at for 2022. So that's when we'll be back. We can't say fortnight, but that's a look at the old calendar. So that's awesome. So let's go ahead and dive in into until we get any calls. We'll just go into the normal stuff that I have prepped.
Okay.
First up, we have a article here, and as you can see on there, it says the Skype with the thing. That's right. I saw I built that on that top slide too, but you can kind of see it there. But this one is let's see. This one is Mr. Harrigan's Phone. Colin O'Brien and Cyrus Arnold join John Lee Hancock's Netflix film. This is by Matt Grober from Deadline on November 23rd, 2021. And this is definitely one was kind of surprising me because I was like, I don't know who else they're going to add at this point. Like, they've got most of the main characters filled out. But it says exclusive. Colin O'Brien, and it says he is in Wonka and the Mothership, and Cyrus Arnold, 8-Bit Christmas and Just Beyond, have joined the cast of Mr. Harrigan's Phone, Netflix's film adaptation of the short story by Stephen King from Blumhouse and Ryan Murphy Productions. O'Brien will play the role of young Craig, with Arnold as Craig's antagonist, Kenny Yankovic. So I actually completely forgot there actually is an age jump for him in that story.
Yeah, he goes from a kid, high schooler to college, right?
I don't remember if he jumps to college, but I remember there was a jump from little kid to at least closer to high school age. Yeah. And I had completely forgotten about that. So definitely, and then of course saying that his antagonist there, I'm guessing it's going to be a bully of some kind. Then it says O'Brien is a relative newcomer to the acting scene. He'll next be seen as young Wonka in Warner Brothers' Wonka, starring Timothy Chalamet. He'll also soon be supporting a role in Netflix pictures The Mothership, starring Halle Berry. Arnold will soon be seen starring alongside Neil Patrick Harris in the New Line film 8-Bit Christmas, which is heading to HBO Max. The actor boasts a starring role in upcoming Disney Plus anthology series Just Beyond. He's also appeared in on the film side in Kyle Rankin's thriller Run, Hide, Fight with Thomas Jane and Treat Williams, and as Derek Jr. in Zoolander 2. He's previously guest starred on Veronica Mars series for Hulu on Fox's Outmatched, and has found a reoccurring role on Fox's The Exorcist. So definitely some acting chops there for the second kid here. Right. But yeah, filling out that cast a little bit.
You said Colin O'Brien, and I was like, Conan O'Brien? That's what I thought I heard you say.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I guess we'll at least see a jump from, I don't know what you'd say that he is here, what you think, 10 to 12-ish, something like that, to the kid that's playing him, which is probably closer to high school age. So that's probably the jumps that we'll see in age in that film. So, yeah. Definitely looking forward to that. But it sounds like that one's chugging right along. So I think that one we got to keep on the list next to Salem's Lot and Firestarter in terms of ones that are
chugging along.
Yeah, those are coming up way quickly. I think those are going to be the ones that we're most certain to be seeing sometime during the year, and not like, they're going to squeak out in December of 2022. But I think we're probably going to see those, as this year plays out.
So. This is okay. I was just about to ask. This is a film, right? Not a series.
Yeah.
Yeah. It says it right here on the slide. John Lee Hancock's Netflix.
For Netflix, though.
Netflix film. So they're on the streaming service of Netflix.
Yeah. Whereas the other two, the other two big ones that are coming out this next year will be theatrical releases most likely. So, and then now with Spider-Man doing some pretty big numbers, I'm guessing that any thought of things going to streaming services is probably not going to happen in 2022. So
that's good.
Yeah.
I know how big of a fan you are of theaters.
Yeah, and I mean the HBO thing I was like so on, the Warner Brothers thing, because there were some that I just watched at home, and other ones I went to theaters to watch. Yeah, it's just kind of depended on the movie.
Oh, really?
So yeah, I mean for the most part I'm a theater guy, but there was a couple where I'm like, it's not really worth going to the theater. I'll just watch it at home. So
yeah,
I don't know that. But I don't think they're going to be doing that again. I think that was a one-time thing for this year. So I wouldn't expect that for anything going forward.
Well, they've already said that they're not doing 2022 on HBO Max.
Yeah,
I know they said that because I was like, bummer. I like having Godzilla versus Kong. Versus Godzilla or Godzilla versus Kong. I always forget which way it goes.
I think it was Kong versus Godzilla. I think
Kong versus Godzilla was on there. There was a couple other ones. That's the only one I could remember that I actually watched. I missed Harley Quinn when it first came out, but I watched it when it got put on there for good.
Yeah. So you did watch that one then?
Oh, Wonder Woman. That was the other one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I did watch Harley Quinn, and then we talked about this yesterday, first at lunch and then at the Hangout. I'm all caught up on Hawkeye.
Oh, okay.
I binged all 5 episodes.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Yeah, I actually think Wonder Woman was earlier, before theaters fully started again. That was Christmas.
Yeah, Wonder Woman was...
Christmas. It was on Christmas Day.
Was it Christmas?
Yeah, it was Christmas Day, legitimately Christmas Day. So I did watch that one at home because I don't think theaters had fully opened back up yet at that point.
Yeah.
So I did watch that one at home, which I'm actually kind of glad because that one disappointed me.
That was not a great movie.
So this next one's a very interesting story. We actually not too long ago talked about the Dollar Babies. And this is quite an interesting spin on it. And this is actually a local write-up here.
God, Jesus Christ.
And this is Saratoga Springs filmmaker to adapt Stephen King's story. This is by Indiana Nash from the Daily Gazette on November 24th, 2021.
That monkey creeps me the fuck out.
Dude, I want one.
You do?
Oh, dude, yes.
No.
Yes, I want one.
What is it, Symbol Monkey?
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely would like one of those. So if you're listening and not watching, then you probably already know what is on the slide there.
It's the Toy Story 3 bad guy.
I mean, it's a real toy, but yes.
It's creepy as hell.
You think so? I think they're adorable.
You also think that kids at 5 years old should be introduced to horror movies as violent as Chucky and Child's Play and Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street and shit like that.
Why not? Why not? Got to get them going early, man.
You're a monster.
Especially if they're girls, because then, when they get to that high school age and, guys are taking them on dates, they're not going to be all scared and stuff and, cuddling up to them and stuff. No, they'll be the one, the boy will be the one cowering in fear, and the girl will be like, you're a wussy.
Jesus Christ, those things go for like $200.
Yeah, if you got like an old school one, I'm sure. One. Yeah. Okay, so the jumping in this is sometimes it pays to play by the rules. Other times it pays to push against them. And this says Saratoga filmmaker Spencer Sherry intended to do the former, but ended up doing the latter with his latest endeavor, adapting a chilling short story by Stephen King titled The Monkey. So, again, we need to get you into the old short stories here into 2022. Because there's a lot of good stories, but this is definitely one of them. And Skeleton Crew is a great collection overall. But it says during the pandemic, Sherry wrote the film script for it with plans to submit it to King's Dollar Babies program, in which the author grants students and aspiring filmmakers permission for $1 to adapt select short stories of his. The catch is that they cannot profit off their film adaptations. Several famous directors and filmmakers like Frank Darabont, The Shawshank Redemption, The Green Mile, and I'm going to add that should have listed The Mist there because, don't throws shade at The Mist, just because Shawshank and Green Mile are a different form. Let's not forget, Darabont's. I love The Mist, man. I
know you do.
It's just so good, and I just feel like it gets the shaft because of the other two, the type of film the other two are. It doesn't get the same kind of respect.
Skeleton Crew added to my Audible wish list for you.
Oh, sweet.
You're welcome.
And then it says those Frank Darabont who got this start through the program. And then a quote from Mr. Sherry. It says, "I heard about this program a couple years ago from a friend who did it. And I was under the impression that any of his short stories were available," Sherry said. But then it turns out that The Monkey was not part of the program, though Sherry didn't find that out until after he had written the script. At first, he decided to shelve it, but he wanted to return to the script, he returned to the script this year and decided to see if there's anything that could be done with it. He says, "I love my idea for this. I love the story. I'm a huge Stephen King fan, which is how I got into this," Sherry said. He reached out to King's agent and pitched his adaptation of the story. And then another quote here says, "I asked for an actual commercial option first," Sherry said, and that was quickly denied. So, yeah, that's usually how it works. And then he goes on and he says, "So I said, okay, I know I'm not supposed to ask, and it says right on the website not to ask, but can I extend the Dollar Baby contract? I just wanted to do this because I love the story." Which, yeah, again, the Dollar Baby thing, it tells you specifically, like, the ones listed here are all that's available. Don't ask for other ones, like, you know, whatever. And then it says the following day, the contract landed in his inbox, along with note from King's assistant commenting how unusual it was for King to grant these kind of rights for a story outside of the usual stories available for Dollar Babies program.
Wow, he must really like it.
Yeah. So according to Sherry, Darabont once had the rights to the story, but let them expire, and this will be the first film adaptation of The Monkey. Ooh. So that's interesting. Darabont had it at one point, had the rights to it.
Oh.
So that... I want to see a whole movie with this monkey. I think that'd be...
I don't.
I think that'd be great. He had a great role there in Toy Story. You know, that same monkey. And then it goes on and says, I love the story, especially sci-fi or horror that really blend grounded dramas with whatever the supernatural element is. And that's why I've always liked Stephen King, Sherry said. King's story follows a young father, Hal, whose two children find a cymbal clapping wind-up monkey that haunted him as a kid. Whenever the monkey's cymbals clang, someone close to him dies.
Oh, shit.
So... yeah, that's a fun little setup, isn't it?
So what happens if you destroy the monkey?
It says in Sherry's adaptation, the storyline has moved forward a bit. The two children, Dennis and Pete, are adults, and Pete is about to have his first child. As he's dealing with all the anxieties that come with that, there is also flashbacks to the horrors of the monkey scene in King's story. So then it would play some of the short story stuff in flashback, basically, which that's an interesting way to go about it.
That's a good way. I like it.
And then a quote here, it says, it's a unique opportunity to be able to make this story my own, and part of it is almost like a sequel where I'm kind of showing where these characters have ended up 20, 30 years after the original story. So it's interesting trying to balance King's work and themes in his story, Sherry said. So yeah, again, very, very interesting take. And then it says, also, and I actually was going to grab a link to this, but I forgot, but I'll make sure to throw it on the show notes. But they launched an Indigo campaign to raise funds for the film on Halloween, and have raised more than $13,000 of their $35,000 goal. The campaign is slated to run through January 6th. So it is still open and going. So I will make sure to throw that on the show notes if you want to be part of supporting it to see, this monkey story come to life.
I'm not doing that. Nope. My money can be spent on better things than that.
I mean...
like #Tad is terrible stickers to put on his bumper and stuff.
And it says, if all goes according to plan, filming will start in May. In the meantime, Sherry will continue scouting for locations and reaching out to others in the local community to collaborate with. Eventually, when the production is complete, he'll be able to screen it at select film festivals and theaters. He'll also send copies of it off to King, who reportedly watches films that arise from each Dollar Baby contract, which is something we've covered before. That's one of King's things. You can't profit from it. You have to send me a copy. So... yeah, that's fun, and I love seeing that real monkey too. You always see animations and stuff of it, but to see a real one there, again, I want one. Be a perfect thing for the up there on the shelf.
No.
Now, what would your fear be? That you would have one like in your house, and then in the middle of the night you'd hear it clanking?
Yep. And somehow I would blame you.
Yeah, of course you would.
I would be like, Tad did this.
But see, wouldn't it be worse to not have one and wake up and hear the clanking?
Oh, God, why? Why? That took me a second to process that, but God, why would you do that?
I mean, that's how it works, man. You sometimes you just don't see it coming.
The worst thing you could do is if you could get permission from my wife to have access to our speakers, our smart speakers at home, and randomly play shit through that.
Yeah. I don't think she'd allow that, though, because I'm sure clown music could find its way through them as well. It seems like something to do.
It may have already done that. That may have happened once or twice in our house.
Call me terrible.
You are terrible.
So again, just throwing it out there, the Skype thing is up here on the top of the screen if you want to call into the show. I'm trying to keep my eye on it. I don't even know if it's muted. It might actually start ringing when someone calls in.
I don't know. Someone call in and we'll find out
on the audio. But yeah, so that's fun. I'm hoping with the film festivals or something, maybe it's a something that'll be like online film festival, so we could actually see said monkey picture.
I was going to ask about the Dollar Babies. Like, are we not able to see it because they can't profit off of it?
Film festivals, there's usually there's not profit involved in that. So film festivals they can do. Now the thing is there was actually a film festival for Dollar Babies things that happened this past year, I think. Okay. It actually it actually turned out to be on a recording day for us.
Oh, was it?
So I think if that were to happen again, if they were to rehash that festival and do it again, I would probably shift a recording so that I would have the ability to watch some of those. So
I'd want to watch some of those if they're Dollar Babies from Stephen King.
Yeah, that'd be fun. But yeah, we ended up recording that day. So I think we ended up covering it, but it was like in a way where it didn't jive to me, like the dates didn't jive in my head. So then it ended up being literally like the night that we were recording it. It was some of them are playing. So yeah, definitely hoping that might not be a one-time thing.
I hope not. I would absolutely be down for that.
Yeah, that'd be a fun one. So this next one, I'm not going to.
Oh God, here we go.
I'm not going to change the slide yet. I want to read the first part as a tease. So I'll get to the slide in just a second, but it gives it away here. So it's hard to imagine the 1999 movie The Green Mile without the central performance of Michael Clarke Duncan as a gifted gentle giant John Coffey. But it seems it could have been a very real prospect had another multi-talented star agreed to take the role. Are you familiar with this?
No.
Okay.
Sorry, I shook my head. I realized we're an audio podcast. Should probably talk.
I mean, there's video for one aspect of it, but yes. It is ultimately an audio podcast, so yes.
I should probably talk.
It's certainly better to talk. Yes.
I swear to God, if it's Shaquille O'Neal, I'm going to throw something.
Don't throw anything, sir, because it is indeed
Motherfucker!
Oh, man. Yes, it is indeed Shaquille O'Neal was in talks to play John Coffey.
Oh, that's so horrible. Just the thought of that makes me cringe.
Yeah. So again, this is the headline of the article. Shaquille O'Neal explains why he turned down the iconic role in The Green Mile by Anthony Lunn from MovieWeb on November 30th, 2021.
He turned it down?
Yeah.
We had to get him to turn it down to get to Michael Clarke.
And one of Michael Clarke Duncan's finest roles as well, if not his greatest,
finest,
right?
His finest.
It is. How did you guess Shaq? That's what I want to know.
Great big black guy.
And that's the first thing that comes to mind.
If you say great big black guy, I think of Shaq. That's the first thing.
What you talking about?
I grew up watching Shaq. Him going to the Lakers and everything like that. I hated him because he always beat the crap out of the Utah Jazz. So.
Yeah.
But
what is it in this? Is it Scary Movie 1 or 2? What's your favorite Scary Movie? Kazam. That's not a horror movie. Have you seen Shaq act?
It is if you've seen Shaq act.
Oh man, but yeah. So I actually just was thinking about that line randomly a few days ago, and then this article came up, and I'm like, dude, seriously, how does that happen? But yeah, so yeah. Let's move on to this article here. It says it is hard to, or I already read that part, hard to imagine. And it says on the Marchland and Orand sports media podcast, Shaquille O'Neal spoke about how he was originally offered the role of John Coffey. So see, not even audition and stuff, but offered the role. But he had his own reasons for turning down the part in what would have been an Oscar-nominated film. The Green Mile is based on Stephen King's novel of the same name, directed by Frank Darabont and featuring sterling performances by Tom Hanks, David Morse, Bonnie Hunt, and more. The movie John Coffey is a Southern black man brought into death row for a murder of 2 girls. But as the story evolves, it turns out that Coffey is not the murderer and he has been made out to be, and instead is something much more than any of his guards are prepared for. One of the main themes of the movie is racial prejudice, and that leads to so many believing that Coffey is capable of murder, and that is the reason that O'Neal turned the role down. Speaking on the podcast, Shaquille O'Neal recalled how he didn't want to play the character someone who is subject to such abuses because of the color of his skin. He also believed that there was the possibility that the role could lead him to being typecast in the future, which is something that he wanted to avoid. And then
he just stopped getting cast altogether.
Yeah, he got a couple terrible movies there, and then that was the end of his acting career. I mean, of course, he's gone on to be quite successful in investing and all kinds of different things. So
he has so many businesses. It's funny. I didn't realize that for a while there, and then I found out he owns it's a fast food joint. Which one is it?
Well, it's not. He doesn't own them all. But he owns a number of franchises and stuff. So yeah, he's a pretty prolific businessman overall. I know locally for us, the Jazz, Malone and Stockton were kind of roped into the car dealership business because Larry Miller, the owner of the Jazz, that was one of his big money makers, and so he basically set those 2 guys up with their own dealerships because he said it would be a long-term money thing for them, and they still have their dealership, so I guess that worked out for them. But yeah, I don't think that's a normal thing. Obviously a lot of athletes end up not doing so well financially long term, but he is certainly an exception. He has made a lot of money, just not very good in
Five Guys. He has 155 Five Guys burgers and fries franchises.
Okay, I was thinking it was In-N-Out, but yeah, that makes more sense. And then it says, as it turns out, and while that certainly would have been a concern at the time, the role of John Coffey was so well written by King and translated to screen by Darabont that it tackled the dangerous and truest form of racial prejudice without ever seeming heavy-handed, and Duncan's performance in the role was one that rightly earned him a Best Supporting Actor nomination. However, O'Neill has no regrets about turning down the role. He has conceded that he probably wouldn't have been able to give the level of performance that Michael Clarke Duncan brought to John Coffey. In the end, there are some decisions in the movie that would have just worked out best for everyone, would have worked out best for everyone in the long run. This one seems to have been one of them. O'Neill ended up not taking the role, O'Neill ended up not taking on a role that he didn't really want to do, and only could have brought so much to. And the movie instead was given to one of the best performances of Michael Clarke Duncan's career. And as I said, I think probably his best performance. I don't know if he's done one better.
No, so, I don't think he has. And it's fascinating to think about these what ifs, with that. And so like I don't dislike Shaq as a person. I think he's an upstanding citizen and a great guy.
Yeah,
I've seen a lot of the stuff that he does. He does a ton of charity work and everything.
Yeah,
but
he just isn't. He's not an actor.
He's not an actor. He's a fantastic basketball player. I hated playing against him because he was so good. But acting wise, oh hell no! Give me a brick wall instead.
And then Agamorphy says, just think in another universe, Michael Clarke Duncan would be selling gold bonds foot powder. Yeah, that's great. I just wanted to look up Michael Clarke Duncan. Let's see what his top roles, like IMDb always has those couple tiles.
Oh, yeah.
So Green Mile is number 1, which is telling. Sin City, Armageddon.
Oh, right. He is in Sin City. I forgot about that.
Yeah, Sin City, Armageddon.
I didn't rewatch that movie. I haven't watched this for years.
Yeah, I don't think I have either. Armageddon, and then Planet of the Apes, the horrible 2001
with
Tim Burton one, was it? That horrible, god-awful one?
Who's in? Who's the main guy?
Mark Wahlberg.
I was gonna say, is it Matt Damon? No, it's Wahlberg.
Yeah, it's Wahlberg. Yeah, that horrible movie. No, haven't seen that one since 2001, and I will never watch it again. But those are like the 4 big tile ones that IMDb shows. But usually those show like their biggest roles, and I think that if you show those 4, I think Green Mile is certainly the best of them.
Yeah.
So, definitely. I couldn't have planned that any better. The fact that you'd actually call out Shaq there, but
him and Michael Clarke Duncan have very similar physiques. Like they're both. I think they're Shaq. I know for sure is over 7 feet.
He's over 7 feet.
I think Michael Clarke Duncan is as well, or he's very close to it. So that's why, just like physique wise, like you say, guys, like, oh, someone's gonna replace,
actually. You are way off.
Michael
Clarke Duncan's only 6'4".
Is he really that short?
Problem is that so many people in Hollywood are so short.
True.
So many guys are in the mid 5 foot range, 5'7" or so. But I actually do know for a fact that they actually had to do some movie magic because the guy that's also in The Rock,
the guard,
Tom Hanks, is probably right-hand man in that movie. I only ever think of him as the right-hand man in The Rock for right. Ed Harris's character. That guy's really tall as well, and I believe there was a number of times they had to do like apple box things to make sure Michael Clarke Duncan looked taller than that guy.
He's supposed to be like a towering giant. In that.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember that guy's name. Let me. And then I'll even look up 6'4". That actually does, like, I didn't know, but I knew Michael Clarke Duncan's a big guy, but I don't, like, in my mind I was like, the way Hollywood works, they'll watch he's only going to be like 6 foot something, and like
David Morse.
David Morse. Okay. Yeah. Let's go ahead and pull him up and see. 6'4", same height.
They're the same height.
Same height. So everything there is movie magic that made John Coffey seems taller than him.
And literally, there's a picture here on IMDb where you can see that Michael Clarke Duncan is like a head above, taller than him, and then he's just a few inches taller than Tom Hanks. So it's like Tom Hanks. And David Morse, and then Michael Clarke.
Tom Hanks is actually tall as well. He's 6 foot.
Yeah.
And for Hollywood, that's actually kind of tall. Like I said, most guys are like in that 5'7" to 5'10" like range, actors. I think that's one thing that a lot of people end up like kind of being shocked by when they see an actor for the first time in real life. Is like, holy shit, look how short they are. But
it caught me off guard. I met Sean Patrick Flannery one year here at FanX, one of the brothers from Boondock Saints.
Yeah.
When I met him, I'm taller than him. I'm like, wait. What?
Huh?
No, he's so tall. No, I'm a little bit taller than him.
Yeah, and I can't remember actually if it was like Apple boxes or if it was forced perspective, because I am looking at a picture on IMDb of Michael Clark Duncan, Tom Hanks, and David Morse. And yeah, he's made to look bigger, and I'm wondering if it's actually it's a forced perspective, because it's actually, I think it may be them walking him down the Green Mile.
Yeah, that's the picture I was looking at. Yeah,
I wonder if that could even be forced perspective. He might just be a couple feet ahead of them.
Yeah,
to appear taller, kind of the Lord of the Rings or elf execution of making someone look huge. I mean, of course, you have to keep them a little bit closer so he doesn't look like an actual giant, like Elf or whatever. But I
remember seeing the first time I saw that picture of Elf where it's in the classroom. I've never seen the movie, but I know that he's supposed to be like a regular dude that thinks he's an elf.
Yeah,
and I remember the shot of him where it showed it like from the side where like he's like up and way closer, I think is what it was.
Yeah, closer to the camera.
To make him look bigger.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that picture for the first time and I'm like, holy hell, that's how they did it?
Yeah. I remember the Lord of the Rings one. There's one where Gandalf's at the table with one of the hobbits. I don't remember if it's Frodo or Bilbo. Mm-hmm. And I remember them showing like the forced perspective where it's like, it's actually like the tables are actually like 7 feet apart. One's 7 feet further back, but it's done in a way to where, and it's designed in a way to where like the cups on the table with the hobbit are like bigger, so they look the right side. It's just that shit breaks my brain, like trying to like see it, because it's optical illusions essentially. But yeah, that kind of stuff is fun. I wonder if that's what they did for Michael Clark Duncan, because obviously if they're walking, you can't really do like boxes or anything unless you put like bricks on his feet or something,
like stilettos, like put him in the boots that Kiss wear on stage.
Yeah, big old, yeah. But I'm guessing it's probably more forced perspective. But yeah, Shaq, that definitely would have made a whole different ball of wax. So yeah, I know he's over 7 feet, like, because the NBA is full of a lot of tall people, and he always dwarfed most NBA guys. I think there's that guy from China was the only one that was ever taller than him.
Yao Ming.
Yeah. In terms of
Shaq is 7'1".
Yeah.
So he's up there. Like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was 7'2".
Yeah. You mean Roger Murdoch?
Yeah.
The co-pilot?
Yeah. Roger.
All right. So yeah, that's fun. I had to cover that because I mean, ultimately, what could have been or what would or almost was. I mean, like I said, when it says it offered him the role, I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
Holy shit!
Like, I'm not going to throw a shade at Mr. Darabont there, but that's surprising to me.
Well, let's look at it. I said the what if of like, what if we had Shaq instead? But let's look at it in a positive light. What if Frank had gotten Shaq to actually be good at acting?
Yeah.
Would we suddenly have a 7'1" giant black man able to roam around Hollywood getting decent roles? What other roles could he have played in?
Yeah.
There we go. Fantasy cast. Shaq in Dark Tower.
Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't even imagine.
I would love to see him as one of TikTok's henchmen.
Yeah. Yeah, you could do something like that.
Down there with them and just be like, oh, just a big muscled
guy.
guy.
When they open the plane, it's just Shaq and they're dead.
It's Shaq stuffed into the Nazi plane. They use him for the motion capture for the skeleton.
Oh man,
for David Quick.
Yeah. Oh, that's classic. So let's move on from Shaq here. But again, anyone that wants, Agamorphy says Speedy and the Talisman. I'm trying to remember who is which one.
I don't remember the Talisman.
Wolf instantly came to mind. Wolf. But in terms, because aren't they like pretty tall? Wolf, if I remember right, is pretty
tall.
Yeah, I was like, unless I've completely invented that in my mind as I was listening to it. But there's definitely a lot of things. But Dark Tower wise, I would just put him in there because it'd be hilarious to see Shaq in a tiny little plane.
As a skeleton.
Yeah, I mean, you just wrap him up like a mummy. Makes no sense, but yeah, I don't know. Kind of crazy though. Definitely glad that we got what we got though, because I think Michael Clark Duncan, definitely his greatest role. And honestly, it's a killer role too. Not even just the best that he did, but like in the realm of overall roles, like in the '90s, that's probably one of the better roles that was done in the 90s was Michael Clark Duncan in that. So
it's what I would say for Michael Clark Duncan's it's Glenn Coffey, right? No, John Coffey. Glenn Coffey's the football player that used to play for my team. John Coffey is dude, he's got to be one of the most beloved characters in the 90s. Like good characters. Like if you're going to make a list, top 10 wholesome, good, no fault character, Coffey's got to be like top 2, right? Top 3?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you got some really good characters, really good guys, you know, like Alan Grant from Jurassic Park, Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
John Coffey. Like,
yeah, I'd say he falls in there, certainly.
That's an interesting list to think about. Top 10, like, good guys from the 90s. Top 10 bad guys from the 90s, you know?
Yeah. And I almost think that, like, in a lot of ways, I mean, they're obviously very different movies, but I think John Coffey and Forrest Gump are very similar.
They are very
similar, just very kind of uplifting characters. Like, I don't know, just there feels like there's a common thread there between them creatively. But, yeah, it's... That definitely. I would say if you were to if somebody was to make like a 2-minute video of 90s things and they were just editing a bunch of shots of movies from the 90s, I'm gonna say I'd be 90% sure that a shot of John Coffey shows up in that video.
I don't want to go in the dark.
And a 2-minute video, that's pretty restrictive. There would be a lot of stuff that wouldn't make it into that video. Yeah. And I do think John Coffey would make it in there, in my opinion.
Do me a 2-minute montage of the movies from the 90s.
Yeah,
be hard pressed not to put John Coffey in there.
Yeah, I agree. It would that'd be tough. And of course, I mean Andy Dufresne would also end up in there.
Yeah,
and he's another tall one too. Tim Robbins. I think he's a taller actor too. I mean they play that off in Shawshank too. They make that part of Andy Dufresne is that he's tall, right? Yeah. Tall and lanky and stuff like that. So, but yeah, that kind of stuff is great.
I need to watch that movie again too. Damn, I need to make a list.
Yeah.
My wife actually has one. She started a Google document about 6-7 months ago. She's like, we keep talking about movies and there's ones that I need to watch and I forget what they are. So I started making a list. And I'm like, I need to do that.
Yeah, I should too, because I will kind of forget at times. I just realized I think I was set to idle in Skype. I don't know that would have mattered. Hopefully people, if you want to call in, you'd still call in. But yeah, I just changed it to active now. So I don't think idle makes it to where you're invisible or anything. But
I don't know. I don't know Skype. I used to use Skype all the time. I don't anymore.
Yeah. Skype has got to be one of the ultimate failures in technology, man. They've been around for how long? And then 2020 happens and coronavirus happens.
And somehow
Zoom enters the field and completely takes it away to the point where Zoom is now the go-to phrase for meetings, right? It's no longer
it's like Kleenex. It's replaced the name.
You don't say I'm gonna I could Skype into this meeting. That's what you would have said pre-COVID.
Yeah.
But then into COVID now it's like Zoom is the generic term. But I find that hilarious because Skype had been around for 15 years or something, and then to lose that to a newcomer is just insanely hilarious.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. Yeah. So next up, we have Guillermo del Toro. It says there's a Stephen King classic that Guillermo del Toro wants to adapt, and it sounds amazing. And this is from Rachel Romian from Cinema Blend on December 6th, 2021. And it starts off here. It says Guillermo del Toro has made a name for himself by creating wonderful and weird tales of horror, monsters, and fantastical creatures. Movies like The Shape of Water, Hellboy, Pan's Labyrinth have cemented his status as a master of the macabre. Who would be better than an Oscar winner to adapt a Stephen King novel? Apparently, he's already got one classic in mind. Now, in your mind, what would you suspect?
The first thing that comes to my head is It, but...
Okay.
Got that. I could see him handling that very well.
And this is just him saying his desires. This isn't signing anything. This is just him saying his desires. So you could make it whatever you want, even if it's not. Because I will actually give you a hint that it's not something that realistically probably would happen. But I don't know.
Pet Cemetery?
Yes.
Son of a bitch, yeah.
So Guillermo del Toro sat down with Eric Vespi and Scott Wampler of the Kingcast to chat about horror author Stephen King's It, the gigantic novel that spawned the 90s miniseries of Tim Curry and the more recent 2-part feature film adaptation. In between discussing the work of H.P. Lovecraft and Scary Clowns, Guillermo del Toro revealed which Stephen King novel he would most want to adapt for the screen. And he said, and this is a quote, the novel that I would have killed to adapt, and I know there's 2 versions of it, and I still think maybe in a deranged universe I get to do it again one day, is Pet Sematary. Because it is not only has the very best final couple of lines, but it scared me when I was a young man. As a father, I now understand it better than I ever would have, and it scares me 100 times more. And then it goes on here. This is outside of the quote. There have already been 2 film adaptations of Pet Sematary, but it would certainly be interesting to see Guillermo del Toro's unique take on the chilling novel. And then in parentheses it says Stephen King has said that it's one of his scariest books he has written. The director's attention to detail to both the creatures and the worlds he creates would undoubtedly lend terrifying authenticity to the paranormal tale. And then it says, but just what about Pet Sematary intrigues Guillermo del Toro so much? Apparently the novel contains one of his favorite scenes from a Stephen King book, and he's even imagined how he would use special effects to craft a genuine interpretation. Guillermo del Toro explains. So another quote here. He says, for me, the best scene in that book is when Lewis opens Gage's coffin and for a second thinks that his head is gone because of the black fungus that is that from the grave that has grown fuzz over the kid's face.
Oh.
I think you cannot spare those details, and I think you're honoring the and think that you're honoring the book. One of the things I thought about Pet Sematary that we would do in post when the dead return, when Gage returns, is I would spend an inordinate amount of money taking out the sheen from his eyes so that their eyes are dull.
Oh, God.
That's a very vivid detail there.
That's horrible.
Yeah, that's sign me up for a Guillermo del Toro Pet Sematary. Sign me the hell up, man.
No.
I mean, we're already getting a show taking on Pet Sematary again, so hopefully Mr. Del Toro can get it for us here. I mean, I know he also wanted to do a job of the Hut TV series, so I'm all about signing him up for all these things he wants to do. But yes, Pet Sematary and the black fungus face, thinking that the head is gone, and then the dull eyes for the risen dead. So that would actually, and think about how creepy that would be, like dull, like eyes that don't have a sheen.
It would be so unsettling for a lot of people because they wouldn't be able to figure out why it's unsettling.
Yeah,
it's one of those things that like you just get that goosebumps, your hair on the back of your neck stands up and everything like that. That's where you're just like, ugh.
It's like, and I think they actually screwed this up in the movie, but one of the first trailers for It. It had the basement scene with Bill and Pennywise.
Georgie.
And Pennywise, he had eyes, but then in the water, I don't think they did the CG, so the eyes weren't there, so it's just black holes on the reflection in the water when he's in the water. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was scary, but I think in the movie it's not like that. I think you actually see his reflection in there. So I think they just went in whatever. But it's like, dude, they almost did it accidentally, but it was scarier. The fact that his reflection didn't have eyes, like that was fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
And they ruined it by adding eyes to the actual final film. But it's just like, because it's just one of those things that it's like you may not even catch it because you may be more looking at the actual Pennywise and not the reflection. But it's one of those things that if you happen to catch it, it'll fucking creep you the fuck out.
You're like, oh God, no.
And yeah, I think you're right. I think it would make people focus where they'd be like, what the fuck is wrong with them? Like there's something off
about them. Like, what is it?
Yeah. It's like the whole like thing with like video games and stuff or computer animation is like there's that with the uncanny valley where there's just that element where if it looks too lifelike but it doesn't quite have everything, it's super fucking like disturbing. Like it's just wrong.
It is
because it's missing that last little bit. Versus so that's why it's almost easier to like go cartoony, like with like Toy Story or something. Like you just don't make the humans. You're not trying to make them look human. They're cartoony, so it's fine. But it's when you start to try to go photorealistic, then you get to like Tom Hanks in Polar Express.
Yeah,
like it's just. Something's off. Something's wrong with that. And yeah, I think that's that kind of thing for sure. And I think people would definitely be very unsettled.
I think so too. Alan says in the chat he needs to be in the Dark Tower process. Imagine if he handled the slow mutants.
Oh yeah.
Oh God. Oh God. Ugh.
All I know is I before today. Or before doing the prep on this, actually, before this episode, I don't know that I ever really had it in my mind that like I need a Guillermo del Toro King film, but now I do. Yeah. Now it's something that needs to happen. And whether it's this actual Pet Sematary or something else, I would love to see his craft and ability as a filmmaker adapting a King project.
Honestly, I would love to see him do a Shining adaptation. I think that his vision with what we have in The Shining with the ghosts and the hedge animals and everything like that.
Yeah.
That dude would scare the fuck out of me with that.
Not to mention Room 217.
Exactly. Mrs. Macy?
Yeah.
Macy?
Yeah, Maisie.
Maisie?
I think it's Mace.
Maisie?
I think so.
Macy? Mrs. M.
Yeah, it's been a couple years now, but yes, like just think about what he would do with that scene.
What are you talking about? It's been a couple years. We did The Shining earlier this year, didn't we?
Did we?
With the
miniseries? I thought that was 2 years. I thought it was last year.
Dude, time has no meaning because of this virus. God damn.
I thought it was further back than that. So it has. I thought it's been a while since I've done that. Done The Shining.
Couldn't you see Del Toro doing a really good, like, seeing the ghost for the first time? You know, kind of thing, or like the fire hose, with Danny.
Oh yeah, fire
that
hose,
kind of shit.
The hedge animals. Room 217, like Danny being in there, because if he did it realistic, like if he did it off the book, you know, Danny would be the one going in there and getting
choked.
got.
Getting choked.
Yeah, and I think he would actually show, because I guess Kubrick does that as well. We just don't ever see it. Like it happens off screen.
Well, he also doesn't get choked. Like there's not. Is there?
Yeah, because Wendy blames it on Jack.
Okay. So, I didn't know if that part made it into the Kubrick version.
Yeah. So, but it's just you see him go into the room, and then that's it. Then you have those two back in that Colorado room, and then Danny comes in sucking his thumb, and then she goes over and finds the
marks,
the ligature marks on him there. So.
Is it ligature marks? I thought ligature marks was from like a cord or rope or something.
I don't know. I think maybe even
marks?
I think ligature might actually mean post-death too.
Okay.
That may be the wrong term. But
the marks on his neck's from where he got choked out
by an evil corpse woman.
God, yeah. Del Toro doing that would. Oh God, I'm like getting chills like thinking about it. Like no,
I'm trying to think of some of the others that I'm trying to just like go through here real quick and just look through. I mean, the other thing too though is with Pet Sematary you have Zelda.
Oh yeah.
How would he deal with her?
Ooh.
Very, very creepy. I think that would be quite sinister. Let's see. I'm kind of cycling through the old King list here to see if there's anything else that really jumps out for Guillermo del Toro. I mean, there's some. I mean, he would probably do great at, but I'm trying to think of ones that would really go along with what he does. I don't know. I think you might be right. I think The Shining might be one of the better picks there.
I know it's being made, but he'd be pretty good with vampires.
Yeah. Except, I don't know. I wouldn't want vampires to go too stylized.
Oh, okay.
You know, like because I thought about Salem's Lot, but yeah, I think Salem's Lot. I don't know. I mean, I guess you could. I guess they did the kind of the more Nosferatu type thing in the first adaptation. So yeah, I don't know, maybe, but yeah, I think The Shining would be a good one, and I think maybe he's got the kind of credibility as well that maybe he'd be one of the studios to be open to let it do The Shining again if that was to ever happen. So. Yeah, so next up, bring in some pain. Teased this on the Patreon hangout last night. I told Peter, teased him on this, but Glenn Mazzara brings the pain on the 2-year anniversary of Amazon passing on the Dark Tower series. So there it is again, just to prove to you that time has no meaning.
It's been 2 years.
2 years was the we've passed the 2-year mark of Dark Tower being passed on.
Holy shit! Really?
Yes. So as you said, just no accounting of time. What's happened here over the last little bit?
Oh, this is gonna hurt so bad, isn't it?
I hope so.
Oh, hashtag Tad is terrible. See that? He hopes that I'm in pain. I'm one of his best friends, and he hopes that I'm in pain.
So this is from Glenn's Twitter, and these are all just going to be verbatim reading his tweets that he tweeted in this whole chain here. And he says, 2 years ago, I was told that hashtag The Dark Tower was not moving forward to series. I had big plans, not only for that show, but for the whole Dark Tower universe. Ideas from my notes. And then, so that's kind of how he starts it off here. The other thing I want to just note with all this, I think what we kind of lose sight of is Glenn is not a guy that read The Dark Tower before getting this job.
Yeah.
So he's not a fan. I mean, and I don't even know if he actually is a fan outside of it. I think he poured a lot into it for this project.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he's a guy that's going to continue to read The Dark Tower for fun. I think it just shows the kind of professional he is, because he's not a dude that grew up reading this and stuff. I think we've kind of got that sense from previous things, and so the fact that he put as much thought and stuff into all this as a guy that hasn't obsessed with the books maybe we have, or some of these other people I think Flanagan has mentioned he's obsessed with the series for a long time. It just shows the quality of Mazzara. But the first tweet here, after his initial one there, he says, a big part of Jake's story is that he bought a children's book in New York City called Charlie the Choo Choo. I proposed creating an animated short for a Comic-Con trailer.
Oh, damn.
So an animated Charlie the Choo Choo.
Oh.
For a Comic-Con reveal. Can you imagine?
Oh, God. No.
That would have been. I mean, not Blaine. It would have just been Charlie. So it's a happy and safe thing, not evil.
No, it's not. I read that book to my daughter. No, it's not.
Did your daughter like it?
Did I not tell you what happened with that when you gave me that copy?
If you did, I don't remember.
I'm going to tell it again, just because, since you don't remember. I'm sorry if I'm repeating it. Ted gave me a copy of Charlie the Choo Choo. And when I went home that night from recording, I showed my wife and daughter, and my daughter's instant reaction was, no, I don't like it. And I'm like, well, come on, we have to read it. It's a children's story. And she's like, okay. So I had my wife read it, who's never read The Dark Tower, who knows about The Dark Tower. I mean, I've talked about it enough with her. She's got the basic idea.
But she doesn't have any.
She has no idea she has no idea that this is part of The Dark Tower.
Okay.
So she reads it, and even she's like, making faces like, ugh, and everything. And then when we got to the end of it, I said, well, what did you girls think? And both of them were like, I didn't like it. And I'm like, why not? And Hediel, my daughter Adiel is her name, literally goes, that train is evil.
And there's nothing in the story to
There's nothing in that. She's like, that train is evil. And my wife's like, what's wrong with this story? I'm like, it's from The Dark Tower. And she goes, oh, that explains it.
That explains everything. It's written by Stephen King. Oh, man. That's glorious. See, it's like one of those things, if like there's those things that have like kids react to things, they should have them react to Charlie the Choo Choo and see.
I'm so mad that I didn't record that. I wish I would have recorded that. I would have absolutely posted that. That was unreal that my daughter's like, that train is evil.
Oh man, that's amazing. I love that.
See, Cody says my boys found Charlie the Choo Choo and said it looked creepy.
I don't get it. I think he's a wholesome little train. That's all.
No. No, Ted Bundy was a wholesome looking fella, and still no. Don't trust it.
Oh, so his next tweet, he says, tell me this wouldn't make a kick-ass amusement park ride. You strap in to Blaine the Mono. The voiceover, the speakers has gone insane. The Mono itself turns invisible, and you go hurling through a simulation of the world of the Dark Tower. And like, you know what I thought to myself when reading that? I don't know what he's fully getting at there, because I don't think you could really do a ride that would actually do that. But a VR experience of Blaine the Mono, that would be something else.
That's something you can make on your own and make it just like something for like, what's it called, the Oculus, just VR in general. I mean, Oculus is a brand that does it, but yeah, if someone was to design a Blaine ride on a VR thing, that would be pretty insane. Well, I think what Glenn's talking about is you get in and there's like video.
Yeah, that's true. You can do video.
You could be looking out at the train.
Yeah.
You have like the train walls, but there's sections that have windows, and you're looking out onto the station, so it's like interactive.
Yeah.
But then when the ride goes, it disappears and it's showing like the wastelands, and then you launch out of the tunnel.
Yeah. Yeah, that's especially if you did like an open front, so the wind and stuff was felt. That would make it even more surreal. Yeah.
Alan says he's refrained from sharing it with his kids.
Yeah.
See, Tad, you just don't get it.
So I'm just going to buy copies of it and start giving it to like elementary schools to put in their libraries.
Oh, God. Why, Tad? Why?
Because it's an innocent train. There's nothing wrong with it.
It's not innocent. Look at him. Again, looks can be deceiving. Hey, this goes the other way. Don't judge a book by its cover. Don't judge him by a cover just because he's a train, a happy little train. He's happy murdering you.
And again, I think that the ultimate though is if people have no context of the Dark Tower, because again, if you mix Blaine in there, then suddenly Charlie, I think it's more sinister retroactively.
Yes.
But yes. So then he goes on here in his next tweet. It says, Father Callahan is a character from Salem's Lot. In Wolves of the Calla, Callahan gives a lengthy account of what happened to him between Salem's Lot and the Dark Tower. It's a great story that could have been adapted as a spin-off miniseries.
Yep.
So yeah, that would have been. I would have fucking dug the fuck out of that, man. A Callahan miniseries. Yeah. Sign me up for that anyway.
You're traveling the highways?
Yeah, the highways and byways of...
Highways and byways, that's what
multiple Americas, and yeah, that would be fun.
In the multiverse?
Yes, indeed. Next up, he says, Christmas special alert. This standalone fable is an important part of Roland's world. It's a story his mother told him when he was a little boy, and he tells a story within a story in the novel The Wind Through the Keyhole. And he says, I had originally thought to adapt this material in the main narrative of the series, but we are no longer employing a story within a story devices. I really would hate to have lost this material. I love it, and I think a lot of fans would enjoy seeing the story of Tim Stouthart. Yeah. So then he says, I proposed adapting it as a 2-hour feature in the same way that UK genre shows have designated Christmas specials. The material is not Christmas themed, but I proposed the UK model.
Oh, okay.
So basically kind of a standalone, almost feature film of Tim from Went Through the Keyhole.
That would have been really cool.
Yeah, that would have been pretty cool. He says the world of the Dark Tower offers many opportunities for us to dramatize stories that may only exist in the written material as a line or two. For example, in the Went Through the Keyhole, Roland mentions that Tim Stouthart went on to become a gunslinger. When he joined a posse that came through his town, Roland gives a very brief account and then says it's a tale for another day. We could have turned it into another feature called The Left-Handed Gun. So again, another kind of Christmas special type thing. Then his last tweet here, he says, we could also dramatize the events that led to Roland's world becoming what it is. We could film the old ones tinkering with the Dark Tower. We could the fall of our world, the rise of Arthur Eld, and the establishment of an order of gunslingers. The possibilities are limitless. So definitely kind of feels like there was a possibility of, in his mind, a whole Dark Tower extended universe.
Yep.
And not just a singular series, but it could have spawned a number of things. And
a DTCU, Dark Tower Cinematic Universe.
Yeah.
I like the sound of that.
Yes, indeed. So yeah, again, it was the anniversary, 2-year anniversary. So he opened up his old notebook to let us in on more of what he had planned. So had to share that.
I'm so bummed. My day is ruined. Thanks, Ted.
I mean, at least it hurt you as much as it hurt me. That's the important thing.
You just don't like suffering alone is what it is.
I mean, what isn't it something about sharing and, good friendship and stuff?
Sharing is caring.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of thing. Sharing misery as well, right?
So if you got stabbed, you'd want to share it with me? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, outside of you, I don't know how I'd ever get stabbed, so.
Oh, there's lots of people that want to stab you, Ted.
But yeah, again, throwing it out there kind of between the stories here on the screen. Here is our Skype handle. If you want to add us on there and give us a call, you can join us on this episode. This is a call-in show for our year-end episode here for our final episode. I don't know how. I think we've pretty much been doing this since the beginning, but I'm trying to think. Let's see. Let's pull it up here and see what our old episode thing go. Because I'm trying to remember what would that have been? 2015.
Jeez, has it really been that long?
Wasn't that our first year?
Was it? Well, yeah, it was. It was October of 2015.
Yes. So there's that. Let's cycle through here. I don't think we did it the first year, December 17th. Nope, that was just a normal round table. So It wasn't that first year, which makes sense because that was only a couple months in.
We weren't even live. I think we did a year-end bash our second year where we did a live show and did a call-in show.
And that was our first time we ever did anything that was live. Yeah. I mean, of course, we didn't have YouTube and stuff, but we had, we told everyone when we'd be recording and that they could call in and stuff. So I don't even know if we had like that. We were that heavy on social media at the time.
Yeah.
Let's see. 2016, last one, 21st, Roundtable 25, Roland versus Flag Face-Off.
Oh, that's right. Wait, 2016?
Yeah, December 21st.
We haven't come back to that yet?
I mean, it's always
no, that's not the Flag Summit. I'm thinking of two different things there.
Yeah, still. So was it 20? God, I would have thought for sure we were doing it by that point, but I guess not. So let's see, the December 20th, Dark Tower Timeline. God, when did we start the year-end bash? I thought we were doing them back then. Oh, man.
I think we did one and then skipped a couple years and then we started doing it.
Yeah, so maybe 2018 is when we actually started going on that.
Maybe.
Flag Summit, December 27th,
yeah,
2018. So, or maybe I guess we didn't have it in the title, maybe that they were year-end bashes, but they probably were. So yeah, we've been doing it for a while, but it's always fun to open it up. But I think we have had one though where nobody called in, and if that happens again, no worries. So this next one here is fun. And
what's your definition of fun? Like fun like hurting me like this last one did, or fun like...
I mean, that was fun.
No.
Shaq was fun.
No.
You know, with your reactions there.
No, Taddy, no.
This is one that I'm glad someone else did it. It's one of those ones that might spark like us to do a challenge, but I refuse.
Okay.
I'm not ever going to do this. I refuse.
You refuse?
Yes, I refuse. So go ahead and click the slide over here. From Gunslinger to Wizarding Glass, Stephen King's Dark Tower books ranked.
What do you mean you're not going to? We're going to rank the Dark Tower books.
Oh, I can't do it, man.
Why?
It's too hard.
No.
Yeah, it's too hard.
No.
It's too hard. I love them all. I can't rank them.
Oh, yes, you can.
No, just like parents can't, rate their children or rank their children.
Oh, they do it.
They do it.
Oh, they do it. They lie to you if they say that they don't.
It's like I used to say like a long time ago, pre-2005 or at least in 2005, I can never rank the Star Wars movies. I love them all too much. Like I enjoy them all. I can't rank them because it's like, how? Like I love them all. Like, I'd feel like I'd feel like I was like, kind of shitting on certain ones because they're ranked so low, and it's just like, but I love them too much for them to be like how do you rank? I don't know. It's just
you just do it. That's
no. I refuse. So, but this is by Anthony Viara from Collider on December 14th, 2021. And he says, in an alternate universe, perhaps one just next door to ours, Amazon gave the green light to former Walking Dead showrunner Glenn Mazzara's adaptation of Stephen King's magnum opus, The Dark Tower. So, yes. See that, Peter? Universe next to ours. It got greenlit by Amazon. Loosely based on the Robert Browning poems Child Roland to the Dark Tower Came, King's epic series consists of 7 main novels, 2 other longer narratives, which are tangential to the main story. And so, yeah, he's basically going to go through and rank them. So I guess I'm not going to ask you to rank them, but how about predict?
What they did?
Yeah, I just...
Song of Susanna's bottom, Wastelands is top.
Okay.
Those are my bold predictions.
Okay. So that's good. It's good to hear that kind of thing. And then when we go to each one, how about agree or disagree type thing? Do you agree or disagree with it? And Alan says, as to say that we're living in a slightly shittier universe, LOL, which, I mean, with the last couple of years, I don't think that we're in the best universe here. Things have gone off the rails in our universe here. But, yes. So let's go ahead and dive into the rankings here. So starting off with number 9, I'm
number 8.
That is weird. Was there? Oh, man,
There's
yeah.
only 8 books. What are you...
No, they include the short story as well, or the novella. So I'm sorry. Yeah, so it is. I somehow missed 9. But 9 is, I don't have it on here because apparently I missed. God damn it! I must have accidentally thought I duplicated, because usually what I'll do with these kind of things is since it's the same title as this slide, for instance, I'll just duplicate it a bunch of times, then just do the numbers or whatever. I must have accidentally thought I duplicated number 9 and then change it to number 8 without realizing it. So, but number 9, the bottom one for them is Song of Susanna. So, point for Peter there, which then it says in parentheses book 6. And here I'll give him credit. He does say none of the Dark Tower novels are bad. And he says, but Song of Susanna is so different from the other books that it sticks out like a sore thumb. This seems to have been King's intention, but it comes off at a crucial point in the overall narrative. When adjusting the style halts the story's momentum. King structures the book in stanzas, which culminate in the most meta plot twist of the series when the author himself shows up as a character. And it says, Roland and Eddie encounter the 1977 version of Stephen King, a functioning alcoholic and a family man with a newly established career as a novelist. It's a pivotal scene expanding the metafiction nature of the series. It's also very confusing, adding a tangled origin story to the entire mythology, far too late to truly resonate. Song of Susanna is important for its focus on the story's major female character, but upending the structure so late in the game is a narrative miscalculation. The story nearly stops cold right before the long-awaited final entry, which is why book 6 remains on the bottom of the list. And I guess I could see why you might put it at the bottom of the list. I don't know if I really agree that the structuring ever bothered me. I think we've talked about it over the course of this year a lot, where it's I think Song of Susanna gets a lot of shit, but it's I don't think it deserves it. I think the biggest thing is that because there wasn't a gap, I don't think that it's clear with this one. We talked about it before. I think that it's really easy to blur together and not realize exactly where the lines of Song of Susanna are. Like 5 is very clear because you've got such a base structure with the the Seven Samurai thing, and then but I think 6 and 7 blur together to where I bet you most people, if you ask your random constant reader, I don't think they'd be able to tell you the story beats in Song of Susanna. Would be my guess, and I think that's maybe the biggest thing that goes against it. I think I've said before, what I want to do is I actually want to just read Song of Susanna on its own and just not read the rest of the series. In a vacuum, because then I can really solidify it in my own mind where it's like, okay, what's the start point? Because I kind of know the start point a little bit, but at the same time, the start point is literally like, seconds after the last book ended? So it's like, it just so easily merges with those other 2 books that it's like...
And it goes straight into 7.
So it's just like, there is no like cliffhanger, there's no like big ending moment. It's just this book where it's like, it's a bridge ultimately.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people say is its weakness, and that's where it's where it deserves this spot. Is that you're saying all these things that are the reason why people put it down there? They're legitimate reasons.
Yeah,
they don't. I mean, King did this. He chose to do this for the novel. I mean, that is what the novel is.
He kind of chose. If it wasn't for the accident, there's no way he would have done all these books at once. And I think that's really where, because I don't think this book gets written this way if King writes it in his normal fashion, which we've talked about this before in the last year or so. If with the general patterning of how long it took between books, we probably would have been getting the last book
a few years ago, right?
Yeah, during the course of this show, we probably would have got Wind Through the Keyhole, and probably close to the time when we started the show would have been very hot off the presses of book 7.
Yeah.
So, which is crazy to think about, like that you would have spread that out that much further. But yeah, I do think that Song of Susanna, I don't know. I guess for me, I look at it where it's just like you kind of, if you look at it structurally and stuff, sure, there may be some complaints, but I think like when it comes to story, I think there's some really badass elements of story in there.
There is absolutely some badass, but there's always
like I love the King stuff. I know some people shit on it, but I absolutely fucking adore King showing up. I don't know about what your thoughts are, but I have always fucking loved that. I think it's one of the most badass elements of the book because that's the moment when you've crossed over to every other King realm and you've kind of encompassed everything that's King is some level of the Tower, everything from The Shining to Pet Sematary.
Yeah.
But then to suddenly cross out into where it's like now it's the real world.
Holy
like
shit, this is our world.
That's so fucking. I don't know what's your thoughts. I've always loved that.
It's always been overshadowed for me. The shootout at the grocery store,
which I love. Yeah, that's a great one.
Jake and Callahan arriving in New York and everything like that. But honestly, Eddie's absolute fucking destruction of Tower is the greatest part of Song of Susanna for me.
Yeah.
So that happening right before they met King. If that had happened and then they had to go on a journey to meet King, like if they had gone through and they had actually been teleported to Montana and then they had to make a trip to New York to get to King, I would have been fine. I would have liked it a little bit more than if when they were dropped right in Maine, a couple miles down the road from King. So they have the shootout, they have the stuff with Tower, then they go meet King. It seems like it's just boom, 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 stuff gets overshadowed. For me, the absolute destruction of Tower is one of the most satisfying things from book 6.
Yeah,
for me is I love that part. So King is just kind of like, okay, this is cool. That was cooler,
Yeah.
like when a movie does that, when they put their best scene at 2 hours, but then it goes another 40 minutes. And it's like, yeah, that stuff was kind of cool, but yeah. Your best part was when those two characters interacted. Yeah,
you can't have fireworks after the grand finale.
Yeah. It's like when it's kind of, honestly what it felt like is when the band is like doing their 8th or 9th encore and you're like, okay, yeah, we're 2 hours past when I was supposed to go home and go to bed. Like, okay.
You're old, sir.
I am old. I mean, don't get me wrong. Still good. Still enjoying it, and everything like that. But it's like, okay, like, Roland's finger twirl. Let's get on back on the path.
Total tangent. But if a band has planned out what songs they're playing for their encores, it's not an encore.
That's true.
It's not an encore.
That's true.
Like if it was like a real thing where they had a set list and then they just decided, you know what, fuck it, we're gonna go longer. Yeah. Let's just throw some songs out. Like that's an encore. But encores now, it's like,
we're gonna play 9 songs. We're really playing 12.
Yeah. It's
Shut
like,
the fuck up.
yeah, it's like, okay, we're gonna go and pretend we're going off stage because we're pretending the concert's over, but no one, like, the lights aren't coming back on.
Yeah.
Like, it's so like phony
like,
to me. But yes,
what it would be for me, the equivalent of A Song of Susanna for me is if they made a Rocky movie where the fight happened at the hour 45-minute mark, and then we have 45 minutes of Rocky's post-fight life. You know, Rocky 2 starts off with him and Apollo arriving at the hospital and getting patched up and everything like that.
Yeah.
Them talking about a rematch and shit like that, all that. Imagine if that was the end of Rocky.
Yeah.
For me, that's what going to see King was. It's great. I loved it.
Yeah.
But it's not as good as the fight itself. And that's what the absolute destruction of Tower was for me.
Yeah.
When you put my favorite scene there,
But then again,
the rest of it's just kind of like, okay, let's...
But then again, Tower is quite the hated character for you.
Exactly.
He may not be Mrs. Carmody, but he's...
No, exactly.
If there's anyone in King's Realm that approaches Mrs. Carmody's level, I think it might be Tower for you.
We know that Mrs. Carmody's on the level of the Tower, so that counts.
No, I'm saying
in the Dark Tower proper.
No, I'm saying Carmody level of hatred for you.
Oh.
Like Carmody's your ultimate level of hatred.
She is the number 2 most hated character of all time for me.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Number 2.
Number 2.
Who's number 1?
Dolores Umbridge from Harry Potter.
Oh, okay. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, exactly. Anyone who's read Harry Potter knows what I'm talking about, but Mrs. Carmody is a close second.
Am I correct that Tower's at least in the same ballpark as Carmody?
Tower,
like not approaching her entirely, but he's at least in the same ballpark.
Tower's on the list.
Okay.
He's on the list. I don't know where he's on the list, but he's on the list.
Which is weird because he doesn't actually come off terrible early the first couple times you see him. That's what's so weird about him.
He's such a nice guy to Jake and everything like that. But when the chips are down and people start relying on him,
later
he starts becoming a fucking weasel.
Yeah.
No, that's where you just want to sock him in the face.
When he changes his word on everything. Like, oh man, he's something else. I'm actually surprised he didn't go further in the most hated thing that we did, which we got to remember that 2022 here for March Madness, the most beloved best character, which of course I'm guessing Randall Flagg's gonna win.
Randall Flagg can't be on the list. It's only for good guys.
Yeah, exactly. That's why he would be on the list.
No, he's bad. Mark says Maine was the thin place where all the walk-ins come through. See, like that was cool. The walk-in part.
Yeah.
I felt that was short enough, that was brief enough that it also world built for me to see like the child of Roderick and everything like that. I love that.
In a way, I always interpreted that too as like almost an explanation for other King works.
Boom. Yeah.
You know, like why other things, like, maybe why is
where are the Lowmen coming from?
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe where did Pennywise come from? If there is this thin place, because it's like, cool, he may have come from space, but he may have also come through a thinny because he's a fucking Toadash darkness monster, and
coincidentally enough, Derry, Maine is where he landed.
Yeah, and exactly, Maine. Salem's Lot. There's just all these different things where it's just like, I've always felt that was like the perfect, like, almost explanation for so many King things, where it's like not everything, but you could easily write that off in your head where it's like, oh, that makes total sense now why all this shit happens in Maine. Like it's King's basically building out why. The only weird one though is the Overlook, then way out there in Colorado.
Built by someone who lived in Maine for his whole life. Yeah, I'll blame it on that.
Yeah, of course, the Stanley itself though was allegedly haunted, right?
Allegedly.
That's
No, they actually like market it that way.
I know they do. Yeah.
When Dr. Sleep came out, I watched a video of someone taking a tour there, and they're like, "Yeah, you're not allowed to take like souvenirs." Like, 'cause they went down in like the basement, like the wine cellars, like where you could see like the foundation, and there was like rocks down there, and they're like, "Oh, can we take one of these rocks?" They're like, "Yeah, we don't recommend it because people have reported that when they take souvenirs from the hotel, they start feeling ill and nauseous until they get rid of the souvenir." And you see the guy go and puts the rock back, and he's like, "Nope, not doing that." Like, I love that part.
Yeah. It's like it was somewhere in like the late spring of 2020 when they're like, "Oh, we found this new mummy in Egypt. We're about to break the sarcophagus." And it's like, why would you do that?
And then 2020 was result.
No, we were already starting into 2020, so it was like already like, no, this is the wrong year to be doing that. Don't do that. Okay, so next up, I guess I can jump here to the next one. Number 8 is Went Through the Keyhole. I forgot to put the number on my list on my side here now on that one. So yeah, I went to the keyhole and it says book 4.5, which that's what I'd call
Accurate.
it too. Yeah. It says set after the flashback events recounted in Wizard and Glass, and before we catch up to the gunslinger in the first book of the series. The Went to the Keyhole recounts how Roland's father, Stephen Deshane, sent him and his friend Jamie DeCurry to deal with a shapeshifter who was terrorizing some outer territories. Which just to me, every time I read like something like synopsis like that, it just feels like an X-Files episode. Like that feels exactly what Mulder and Scully would do. Like they'd be hearing about some shapeshifter in this like area, like the Ozarks or something. You know,
is that where you think shapeshifter is Ozarks?
I'm just picking some random spot of America that can kind of have a creepy feel to it.
I always think of Arizona.
Yeah.
Like the desert, like the shapeshifters. Native Americans have a lot of stories about them. I've heard that before. Skinwalkers kind of thing.
What about the Bayou?
No, we don't talk about the Bayou. Sir, we don't talk about the Bayou.
Let's just add a shapeshifter into the whole, you know.
If you want to make a horror film that's going to scare the shit out of Peter, do a beastie in the Bayou.
Yeah.
Not a crocodile, not an alligator. Sorry, crocodiles aren't Bayou. But if you want to make a straight up one where Peter will legitimately scream like a little girl and shit his pants, Beastie in the Bayou. And you can call it that too, Beastie in the Bayou.
That is a good title. And then it goes on and says there's a story within a story which follows a young boy named Tim who lived with his mother on the edge of the great and dangerous forest. What follows is a fantasy fable peppered with characters like the Covenant Man, and then it says in parentheses a parallel to the perennial king villain Randall Flagg, which I disagree with the villain part, or the Man in Black, and an intelligent white tiger revealed to be the legendary wizard Merlin, who Tim eventually frees. I guess some of these, like, they just synopsizes the book. I actually don't, I was generally left those off. I guess I grabbed that one for some reason. Then it says, "I Went Through the Keyhole" is an enjoyable tangent, but not essential reading to the relative Dark Tower series as a whole. King might have benefited from either splitting this into 2 or 3 short stories or novellas, which is actually an interesting concept. I've never thought about that before. If they would have just split it into a few different novellas, I wonder how much different it might be. Might be viewed.
That is interesting to think about.
It says the Went to the Keyhole ultimately feels unnecessary, even though it reveals a piece of backstory about Roland's mother. King could have found a way to get this into the main novels and make it relevant in a book in a way this book is not. So ultimately, it seems like he ranks this one lower because he ultimately just doesn't feel relevant. And I don't know how I feel about that. I guess for me it was different because I guess it depends on how you come at it. For me, I came at it as this is the only book that came out while I was a fan. I came to it pretty early, like maybe book 7 came out as I had started the series, but ultimately I came to the series so late that, like, for me, this is just kind of a, hey, check back in with this world, and I enjoyed the fuck out of it for that. So I guess I've never really thought about it, like how it structures with the whole series, except for the fact that I don't like reading it in between 4 and 5 because I don't like how much of a stop that is to the whole journey. Even when I know the full journey, I feel like it still feels better to come after book 7 as just kind of a
check-in.
Yeah, check-in, kind of how it really was published, versus like if I read book 4, like I want to get into book 5 and move on with the journey a bit, and so to have another couple hundred pages of, you know, stories and stopping, it feels wrong to me. Like it doesn't feel, it feels like it slows things down way too much for me.
It interrupts the flow of the series for you.
Yeah,
it's one of those things that I think what we were describing is the same way. I feel the exact same way. It's better after book 7. I like it there better.
Yeah,
but I think it's just because that's where we read it the first time.
Yeah,
I think it's, my wife told me about that, where like you'll usually like a song the first version you hear of it.
Yeah,
whether it's acoustic or live or
whose version.
Yeah, exactly. And then when you hear the other ones, you're like, yeah, I don't like it as much as the one that I heard first. It's, I mean, there are exceptions, you know, to every rule. Hurt by Johnny Cash for sure.
I'm even 9 Inch Nails fans, I'm guessing, most likely adored the Johnny Cash version when it came out.
But it's just, for me, it's we read Went Through the Keyhole after, and that's where it belongs, you know, in my mind.
Yeah, but I think for me, it's not just that though, because I think it is really comes down to the flow, and I think the flow, cool, you slow down for book 4, but ultimately it's one of the best books anyway, so it's a worthy story, especially when you've already, you know how it ends, so it's just a fun thing. But I think even when you know the whole journey, like to then have another pause and wait and tell a story, like it just, I don't know. It feels wrong. I honestly think I might even read it between 5 and 6, maybe easier than I would between 4 and 5, because I know it doesn't fit there. But at the same time, like it would, then I would at least have the whole journey of book 5 that kind of moves me closer to the tower, and then I stop for Went Through the Keyhole, and then go to 6, and then. But ultimately, I agree, and it could just be the fact that it was published that way. But I enjoy it. It like I said, it's just a fun little check-in. It's like a little postcard, from Midworld.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, again, what's funny though is as I was reading this, is like every time I was just like, so low, and that's where I'm just like, well, I don't know what the hell.
What would you put below this?
I don't know. I mean, I think if so far, if it were me, I think I probably would have flipped them. I think Went Through the Keyhole would have been maybe last, in Song of Susanna, maybe next.
Okay.
Potentially. I mean, again, I don't know. I haven't really thought it all through. I'm just saying that because again, I love Song of Susanna. There's a lot of good stuff in it, and yeah.
Again, saying that it's the weakest of the Dark Tower series does not mean that it's a bad novel.
I know.
That's the thing. Is like saying like, hey, the Green Bay Packers have won 2 Super Bowls. Which one's your favorite? Which one's your least favorite? Oh well, that doesn't mean that it's a bad one.
Yeah,
it's still a great one for you as a Green Bay fan.
Still don't like it. Makes me lose my hair.
You don't have any hair. Get out of here.
Having I don't know. I just think it would give me an ulcer trying to rank them. But yeah. So then
you've already done it. You got number 9 and number 8. Let's keep going.
No, because again, then I would even debate where is Gunslinger. I don't know. It might be in the lower realm for me. Because I don't know.
I can't believe you're saying no to doing this.
Yeah, I can't, man. It would be too hard. Wow. Because here's where it really not shocked me, but it was just one of those things when it just knee jerk reaction was because it's okay, Song of Susanna. Of course, I knew that was going to be there because it's just I feel like you're almost required to put that one last. I just feel like that's just. I don't know.
You just want to go against what everyone's opinion is. You just don't want to agree with it.
No, I just feel like the second I saw the headline before I even clicked on it, Song of Susanna will be last. I mean, I don't know that it deserves it. I think that it's one of those ones that I always think to myself, with the King cast, I would just love for someone to just go way off the board and say, I want to cover Song of Susanna. Because so far that, with people who have joined the King cast, they've done they've done Drawing of the Three. They've done some of the more popular books.
Yeah.
But they let the celebrity, whoever picked the topic. Dude, I would love to see someone just pick Song of Susanna and actually make those guys just read that one and just talk about it.
Let's see you do it. Get on the King cast and do it.
But this one got me a little bit. Is number 7, they had the Dark Tower. And that just felt wrong to me because it's a depressing book for a number of reasons, but at the same time, it's the culmination.
It's good, though.
Yeah, it's good. It's you get Again, this is where I think this is the one that really solidified it in my mind, though, where it's this is number 7, but then I was just well, I guess I don't know how and that's where I'm just I can't rank this. I couldn't do this myself.
I think I'd have to do 8. I wouldn't be able to do Sisters, the Little Sisters of Illyria, because I still haven't read it. I think this is in the wrong spot for me. I think this is the first one where I'm this is definitely in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
Went Through the Keyhole and Song of Susanna might flip in my mind if I actually did my ranking. But for sure, number 7, the Dark Tower would not be this far down for me.
Yeah, it feels crazy that it's this low because I just feel it is such a good book. But yeah, we'll jump into his little explanation here. It says, for many fans, the Dark Tower concluding volume feels somehow rushed, even at 845 pages. Which, I don't know about that. It says King began the Dark Tower in the late 70s as something close to a psychedelic fantasy western. Became much more over the decades, refracting and reflecting many of his most famous stories through a near infinite prism of alienated realities. Diehard fans will find this something close to fan service, with characters from several other King stories and novels in the final Dark Tower book. While Eddie, Susanna, and Jake are given satisfying endings, a surprising amount of stories happen, quote, off screen, recounted in a lot of clunky exposition. These side stories often come across as far more interesting than the main narrative, and they raise a lot of questions. A character we met briefly in Song of Susanna becomes a major player over several decades, but we only get to hear about it secondhand, which we're talking about the Tet Corporation stuff. which I do agree. I would love to hear that, which is why I've always said that, you know, if you wanted a Godfather 2, another book, I would say Fall of Jericho Hill and the Tech Corporation stuff. I think that'd be a perfect
back and forth
ebb and flow, like Godfather 2 style. King's constant readers can hardly blame him for wanting to see his story through the end as quickly as possible, but book 7 really could have been split into at least 2 volumes, which I totally agree with. Yeah. Not necessarily saying that because I never really felt 7 was rushed, and I guess I've never really analyzed it in that way to think to myself that a lot of stuff happens off screen, quote unquote. Mm-hmm. I guess he's right. That is the case, but I don't think it hurts the book because, like, I don't know if I really would have wanted to have seen more than what Column tells us, right?
Yeah.
But I will agree with that last statement, though. If it were split into 2 volumes, like,
could have been flushed out a little bit more.
I mean, just more Dark Tower on top of that.
Absolutely, hook it to my veins.
Yeah, that's where I'm just like, because I love it so much that it's like, yeah, if King wanted to, like, add another 400 pages to it and split it into 2 books, like, I totally would have been okay with that. 2 650 page books for the last quote unquote book. That would have been something.
Mark just gave us his order from best to least.
Okay.
Do you want to read it now, or do we want to wait till we're done with all 10?
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
He did 1, 4, 3, 5, 8, 2, 7, 6.
Okay.
So he's got 6 at the bottom and 7 at the second spot from the bottom.
Okay.
So,
I think the thing is it feels like it's in the wrong spot, but then when you think about it, it's like, well, what's it going to go over? Because, like, many of the books are good that it's like, I don't know how.
I think for me here, this is about the spot where I'd put Gunslinger.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so then
if there's one of the Dark Tower books that can be fleshed out a little bit more, it would have been Gunslinger for me.
Yeah.
That was short. It was sweet, to start off a series, but
yeah,
I want more.
And I mean, and the thing is I ultimately remember the fact that I did struggle with the first book the first time. Like, now that I have the context of the whole story, like, I really enjoy the first book. Mm-hmm. But it didn't do it for me just because it didn't. For the first time, I had a struggle with it because ultimately it wasn't King. It wasn't King's style because it was a very young, a very very young and unrefined King that wrote that book. It ultimately was a thing where it's just like, whatever age Tad was when he picked that up, that's not what he was expecting. He was just like, oh, Stephen King, I know exactly what to expect here.
Exactly.
Read a couple of his books or whatever. And I just, when I opened it, started reading, I'm like, this is not at all what I've seen with King before. This is like, just feels different and just, I didn't know at the time that, like, oh yeah, he wrote this when he was in college or whatever. Like, he was nowhere near, like the guy that was writing The Shining or whatever, like 10 years later or whatever. But so
Mark also says, and I think this needs to go without for everyone to understand, because me and you feel the same way. Mark says, love them all almost equal though.
Yeah,
like that's the thing is, like, I'm saying Song of Susanna goes here, Gunslinger goes here, but that doesn't, again, it doesn't mean that. I'd still take these books over almost anything else out there.
Yeah.
That's the reason. I mean, we're here doing a show for this book.
And I think that's why I couldn't rank them, because it's just one of those things that, like, for one, it would be meaningless, because if we did it every episode next year, we ranked the books.
Yeah.
It'd be different for me probably every time.
Especially when you're reading through them.
Yeah, exactly. It would, exactly. So it's pointless in that fashion, but also I just feel like I would really, really struggle with how to rank them, because I do love them all for different things, and how my mood is might raise or lower things, and it just I couldn't see myself doing it. I think it'd be too hard for me personally to do. But let's jump on over to the next one, number 6, Wolves of the Kala, book 5.
How dare too low.
I thought the same. I know this is your favorite, so
I love this book so much.
So starting off here, he says, while the constant readers has been aware the Dark Tower series takes place somewhere within King's other stories, Wolves of the Kala gives its characters their first inkling of the larger structure of their story. The book provides a much more detailed look at the ordinary citizens in the far-flung lands of Roland's Midworld. We see how the grand epic tale affects the people who are just living out their lives unaware, and then in parentheses says, and largely uninterested, that they are part of something bigger, which I actually do agree. That's actually kind of, and I actually think that's one of my favorite things about it is, it really is an extended look. It's like, sure, we get like the people of River Crossing. There's some different times that we get like kind of ordinary people in Roland's world, but never for an extended period of time until this book. So I've always loved that. I think it's charming. Then it says, still, King opens the book with dense descriptions of this new corner of his universe. And I don't know if I buy this. He says, rendering it inaccessible in a way that his previous novels were not. Which I get what he's saying in a little bit in terms of like, I feel like the closest that King ever gets to Tolkien is explaining like how this whole area is set up. Like that's the closest that King ever feels like Tolkien-y, not that it's 30 pages like Tolkien would have done. But
you're talking about when he explains the Kalas?
Just everything. Yeah, the Kalas, the geography, like you get some backstory of like the cultures involved. Like so I get what he's saying. Like, if you want to say, but I guess I don't like the word inaccessible there because I don't think that makes it inaccessible to anyone. I think maybe it makes it a little bit less approachable. Like it's a little bit harder to get. Like it's not as easy. King's usually like, what does King call himself? A Big Mac and fries of authors. Like he's never been what people consider highbrow, whatever. Like he's writes in a way that's very approachable. Anyone can pick up one of his books and dig it usually. But I've never even considered until I read this from this guy though that book 6 was even, once he said that, I'm like, you know what, now that I think about it, yeah, I guess that is kind of Tolkien-y of him. But I don't think I've ever realized it while I was reading it though.
No.
I never, like, even the first time I was never like, man, this is weird. This is different for King. I was just like, oh, cool, this whole fucking new area. And like, and he's explaining it. I'm just fucking digging the fuck out of it. So it's one of those things that had to be pointed out to me to even realize that it's kind of not Kingian.
One of those things for me, the reasons why I love book 5 is because he actually did that. It's like, great, more of Roland's world. Fucking give it to me. Like, hook it to my veins, feed me more. I want to extra large, biggest, mega size it and everything like that. I want as much as you can give me.
Yeah.
So that's where, when book 5 started giving us that, I started seeing like, we've seen the world has moved on. We've seen the wastelands. We've seen Tull. We've seen Lud. And there's no hope. There's horrors and abominations, like the buffaloes, the bees, and everything like that.
Yeah.
And then you get to the Kalas, and it's like, oh shit, the world's starting to repair itself.
Yeah.
There's hope. Is basically what it kind of symbolizes for me with the Wolves of the Kalas. So I am so excited to get all of that. When he's saying like it's inaccessible and everything like that, I'm like, oh shit, no, look, there's more connection to our world,
Yeah.
Here we got, settlements popping up, and we got one's a farming, one's a gambling. One's there's traders who go up and down the river and everything like that.
Yeah.
Shit, that's stuff I understand from like settling North America.
Yeah.
With the British and the French and the Spanish settling this continent.
To me, it's almost something that like, if anything, I probably would have like loved it, but I almost would have thought like, where was this the rest of the series? like in Wastelands, we're in the middle of it now. There's never a time that we get a very good indicator of what we're seeing around them. Like a little bit. There's times where it's just like, oh, like they explain like the tree line and where they camp. Like we're way past that now. Yeah. But it's like as they're journeying through the rest of the stuff, like, I just don't feel like you get the same kind of like
you don't get the history of Lud.
Yeah, exactly.
There's nothing there. You get a little bit at River Crossing, just a little smidge to wet the taste buds and everything like that. Quench the thirst a little bit. But Lud, you go into Lud and they give you like the bare bones. Something bad happened, people did wrong, and now we got two factions fighting each other.
Yeah.
The pubes and the grays. Like, deal with it. Move on.
Yeah.
But we don't ever get a chance to dive into that. But for me, that's what Wolves of the Call finally gets to us. Also, we get set up for this with Wizard and Glass. Wizard and Glass is a huge world building.
Yeah.
Oh, this is what it was like before the fall?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so huge to see that.
Yeah.
Oh, we saw what it was before. We've seen what it is now. Wastelands, Drawing of the Three, Gunslinger.
Yeah.
We've seen what the world is now. Wolves of the Call gives us a taste of what the world is becoming.
Yeah.
So we get the before, the during, and the after kind of jumbled up.
Yeah.
But we get it.
Yeah.
I love it.
And Alan encompasses my thought entirely. He says I'm an exposition whore too. So that's me. Like I've always been that way. I mean, I've been saying it how many times in our book clubs. Like in the book 1, my favorite stuff is almost the flashbacks of Roland's childhood and like Gilead and stuff. And then like as much as I hated it the first time I was reading it because it wasn't moving me towards the tower, book 4 is my favorite book because so much of what it expands and shows me, and I love, you know, like the culture of magus and stuff. So I love all that. Cody says, if Dark Tower is a drug and we are junkies, I was a one-hit addict. My first King book was Gunslinger. I was hooked instantly. There was so much to find out, so many unknowns, and the style was so raw and jarring compared to anything else I had read. It was all over the second I reveled in it. And see, for me, I guess like I already had an expectation of King, and I think that's maybe the difference is I didn't come to Gunslinger first. I came to a lot of other King books, not a lot, but I had read a number of King books prior, so I kind of had a feel for what King feels like, and it just didn't have it for me. So like I remember even like I was like, I'll start into second book, but like if it's more of what it is in this book, I don't know if I'll continue. Even just the tone, the style of writing was, I guess what you're kind of what Cody's saying, like the raw style, it was so different than because King has a very polished style usually. So to have such a raw style, I'm like, I don't know. And it almost felt like I can't say high because it sounds druggy, but what I'm saying like is like, it almost felt like more like English lit class, like Gunslinger did. Like I almost feel you could kind of feel the pretentious college kid writing it.
The professor in It who gives Bill D'Ambrose shit for his horror story.
Yeah,
that kind of class where it's like highbrow literature and shit like that. When you got to Drawing of the Three, all of a sudden it's like, oh fuck, throw all that shit out the window. Let's write a goddamn novel.
Yeah, and like so there's just a little bit of a tonal. So for me, I think maybe it was having that preconceived notion of King in my head, maybe. And it's not that it was like bad, because I definitely got through it. It just wasn't grabbing me as much. Like I was just thinking about it because I just flew just recently. I was on a plane. Every time on a plane, I look out and I think of Roland entering Eddie's mind, and because it's one of those things like. If you also think about it historically, it's like we've been flying for 100 years. So it's like in the course of how many, like what 4,000 years of recorded history or something like that, you know, of humanity's recorded history, it's like 100 years of that 4,000 we've been able to fly. So it's just to think about the aspect of like, hey, I'm flying in a giant metal tube, you know, thousands of feet above the air. Like all throughout history, this would have been the most unthinkable thing, and not to mention then how Roland does it. But so I always think about that, and like that just brought me instantly to the fact of like that's exactly the moment that I fell in love with the Dark Tower series. And I remember thinking that I was looking out. I think we were over like Omaha or something. As a matter of fact, I was just Delta has a little thing where you could click the thing and it shows you like
where your plane is, how fast and altitude and all that stuff.
Yeah, and it was like over like Omaha. We were just in that region, and I was looking out, and I remember just thinking to myself like, 100%. That is the fucking moment that I was 100% in love with the Dark Tower series. Like that's like I was intrigued as fuck. Like the book 2 had already kind of pulled me in because the style was the polished King style that I was expecting in book 1. But then it was just like, okay, like lobsters and like whatever. This is fucking batshit. But then the second he opens a door and he's looking out a fucking, you know, airplane jet window, it's like, dude, what the fuck? Like I was
there's the hook.
That was it. I mean, for me, that's the reason I'm here right now doing the show is that moment. So it's not to talk shit on book 1 at all. It was just my expectation of kind of what King was in my mind. Book 1 didn't have it as much, and I've definitely appreciate the fuck out of it now. I mean, I'm reading it right now currently, and I
reading it. You talked about this. You're not listening to it.
Yeah,
you're physical copy reading the book.
Physical, because I got that new box set, so I got that finally. So yeah, I'm reading, and I enjoy the hell out of it now. I think it was just not what I was expecting.
It was not what you're expecting. It always catches you off guard and everything like that, but it can still be hella enjoyable after you get over the shock of it being different. I've had that happen with video games and TV shows and movies. I go into expecting something and I get shocked by, oh, this is what it actually is. And there's stuff that you've introduced me to.
That and there's times I'll warn people.
You warned me about the Dark Tower. I remember you warning me about that, but book 1 hooked me instantly. I'm like, what the hell is this cowboy doing? I want to know. You know, and everything like that. And then you're like, don't worry, it gets even better in book 2. And you're not wrong, it did.
So I guess that's it for me. So yeah, definitely, and that's a cool thing about this though, is we can all have different views and interpretations and tastes on it, because ultimately it's art and art is subjective. And then Cody says George on the audiobook makes Gunslinger sound like poetry at times. Definitely makes it a special book in my heart. And I think that's I think that's the right term, is poetry. It's not even just George. The actual text is that way, and I think that's what kind of turned me off a little bit.
That's what you were talking about.
Because King has never been a poetic, not anything I had read up to that point.
Yeah.
So it's not at all what I was expecting, and the fact that I think poetry is the exact right term, Cody, to explain what I mean is it feels way more poetic, and I think George's voice is perfect for it because there's I feel like there's almost like a desolate poetic nature to it.
Yeah.
That it just feels like desolate, which fits the setting of book one as well,
Absolutely.
right? But it's all of those things, and it feels like surreal as well. There's all this going on where it's just like whatever, and it was just very, very different, and I don't think I had no warning of it, So again, if somebody had warned me, I bet I probably would have had a different. Maybe I'd even think of it different. But again, in rereads though, I don't rank it like super low. It's more of just like thinking of that first time, just as grasping at straws, because I do love them all so much that it's hard for me to rank them. That I would probably just go to the fact of like, oh, the first time I read it, I felt differently about it, so maybe I'd rank it lower. More of just a cop out, kind of like Jack from the Talisman on our King Kids. I left him off because I hadn't finished the Talisman yet. That was just my cheat to because I. what was it? What do we have as a top 10?
Top 10.
Top 10.
You did like 14.
And I think I had like 12 where it was like, I can't cut anymore, man. And I was like, I don't know how the hell I'm going to cut 2. So I was like, Jack, I haven't finished this book yet. So I'll just take him out because I haven't finished this. I was only like a quarter of the way in. So I'm just like, even though I loved him at that point already, I was still like, I'll ice this fucker off my list because I haven't finished the book. So that's my cop out.
Cheating.
Now, if we were to do the list now, I'd be in trouble because I've finished the Talisman. So, but it's that kind of thing. It's hard. So I just look for excuses to help me. That's why I don't want to rank them. So then let's go ahead and jump over to the next one, which is number 5. Number 5 is The Wastelands, and this one actually kind of surprised me too. You said you thought Wastelands would be number 1,
wow.
Which I agree. Wastelands ranks high for a lot of people, so
it's up there.
So number 5, that's definitely surprising. And he says The Wastelands takes the Dark Tower narrative into a more expansive territory than the first 2 novels. It contains a series of exciting sequences, which would be at home in a big screen blockbuster. The quartet pulls Jake from a maw of a monster born from a crumbling house. They battle a bear the size of Godzilla and must survive a mad dash through a bizarre city called Lud, which feels like a post-apocalyptic New York City.
Okay, come on. If you're gonna write something, get the facts right. Shardik wasn't that big. Come on.
He was pretty fucking big.
He was not as big as Godzilla.
Not the new Godzilla, but the old school Godzilla.
Old school Godzilla was still as tall as the skyscraper in Tokyo.
They massively increased him for the new one. He was never that.
He was huge.
Google like the original Godzillas. He's not that big.
How tall is original Godzilla?
I think Shardik
164 feet.
How tall is Shardik?
Like 3 stories is what they said, right?
Look it up. I think it's right. I mean, the other thing is that Godzilla stands on his hind legs and the Shardik doesn't. So
well, when he rears up, he doesn't even reach the top of a tree.
Those are big trees, though.
They're not that big.
Then it says The Wastelands finds King's imagination firing on all cylinders.
70 feet tall.
So not that far off.
100 feet. That's like, what do you mean not that far? It's 100 feet.
And then it says, conjuring a vibrant and detailed universe which rivals some of his best work. So I do think with a lot of the stuff he's saying, though, ultimately, where it's like, again, when we're saying it's too low, that's why I don't want to rank it. It's too hard. Like, I would be, how much I'd be struggling if I had to just write this list instead of reading it. So, because he's saying things like this rivals some of his best work. Like, so he's definitely not saying that, like, it's down here at 5 because it's not as good. He's ranking it up there as great. So, but yeah, I'm a little bit surprised to see it because, again, usually Wastelands is
top so
1 or
fan
I'd say
favorite.
1 to 3 for most people. I see him rank it in their top 3, and I've seen it as high as number 1. So
it's up there.
Yeah,
I see it all the time.
You know what's funny is I've never ranked it as high. I may even have always felt it a little bit closer to this, kind of like middle of the pack.
Really?
Until this book club, man. This book club
going through it, you're like, damn.
Yeah, this book club is really, because I mean, I've always loved drawing it. That's my first love for Dark Tower. Like that, it really pulled me in drawing the 3. So that's always going to be one of my favorites. Book 4 has grown on me so much to the point where that's my all-time favorite. But yeah, Wastelands, I think it was more of just not giving it as much attention. Because now in this book club, dude, I am fucking enjoying the hell out of it, like so much. And it's like if I were to rank it, I would imagine that doing this book club probably would have moved it up some spaces, is all I'm saying. Because
for now, until the next, like you were talking about earlier, every time, ask you in January, you have a different top 10 than you would now.
Yeah, exactly. And so feels low, but honestly, before our book club, I may have actually put it similarly if I was forced to make this list. But yeah, this book club, man, I don't even know if I've conveyed it on the book club itself, but it's like, dude, this is like really
good,
getting my blood flowing for this book, way more than I've ever done before. And I think part of it might be is overall book 2, one of my all-time favorites, book 4, one of my all-time favorites. This one just sits in the middle. Not saying that it's bad, but I think the fact that it's caged between my 2 favorite books,
you're kind of just rushing through it to get to 4.
I don't know. Until this book club, I wonder if there's times though that I've not given it as much credit because it's sitting next to 2 of my favorite. There it's sitting almost sitting in the wrong spot, almost to the point where but now where it's like we're so focused on it for this book club, it's just been knocking my socks off, dude. I fucking love it. It's fucking incredible, to the point where there's even times where I'm like, I can totally see why people have this at number 1 for the series. It's an incredible book.
Yeah,
and
also it has Oi.
Not yet in our book club, but we're almost there. What do you think? 2 episodes? Episodes?
The next episode has Oi.
Yeah.
Right after they get Jake over, the next scene is Oi.
Really? I didn't realize it was that quick. I thought it was not like I thought it was a ways away, but
because they get him and then go to River Crossing and then go to Lud. Because they have Oi with them when they find the plane.
No, yeah. I know. I figured there may be at least. I figured if it wasn't next episode, it would be the episode after.
Oh no, it's next book club. We're getting Oi.
Which I know you've been chomping at the bit for. You've been waiting for that for a good while there.
I love that little ankle biter.
When we get to the moment on the bridge, though, I have a feeling that you're going to give me some shit.
I don't know if I'm allowed to. I got to avoid spoilers,
No, when we get to the bridge, though.
I know.
I mean, I'll fully admit to it then in that book club, too. That it's like, yeah, I just drop the fucking thing. I don't care. You're going to get everyone else killed for this stupid thing. There's probably other Billy Bumblers out there.
No, Mark, we have not reached River Crossing yet. The last book club, we just finished getting Jake through the door. At Dutch Hill and everything.
Yeah.
So the confrontation in the speaking ring, is it the speaking ring? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, but he's all saying keep an eye out for Roland's
hat. Yeah, we got to keep an eye out for Roland's hat.
I don't think it's popped up recently, but I do think it will be popping up.
I think it's only been mentioned once so far, hasn't it?
A couple times. There's a few. Yeah, I think early in book 1 and 2, I think there's some mentions. But yeah, in book 3 though, I don't think we've had it mentioned yet. So
thanks for the reminder though, Mark. I actually did forget.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to say there was something in book. Yeah, somewhere in there, there's the hat.
I think it's in book 1 that he talks about it, like at the stable, like he pushed it back off of his head or something.
Yeah, because first in the opening, it's like his hat that was long lost or whatever. So it's like he doesn't have it the very opening couple lines, but then it's like throughout. You finally see it pop back. So yeah, it definitely comes and goes, which I think would be hilarious if whoever does an adaptation actually does that and it just it just appears at times.
There's a hat. There's not a hat. There's a hat. There's not a hat.
He probably couldn't get away with it. Whoever did it, but
the continuity person on the movie would be like, "What the hell are you doing to me?"
Yeah, but it would be the ultimate wink to Dark Tower audio readers because I don't know.
Agamorphy says that Wasteland sits in the middle for him too.
Okay. Yeah, that's I think with the way this guy's writing though, I don't think he's at all because I don't think he thinks there's a bad book in the series, which I agree. So definitely understand, but that's why I don't want to rank them, man. It'd be hard.
It would be very hard.
I would end up with no hair at the end of it.
You have no hair. Just pointing that out that you have no hair.
Okay, so number 4, Little Sister of Illyria, book 0.5, which is one I've never seen. I've never seen it mentioned that way before, and I love it. It says this excellent prequel novella takes place some years before the first book, when a younger, and then it says in parentheses, and slightly more optimistic, Roland finds himself in a seemingly abandoned town called Illyria. He finds a medallion on a dead body and is then attacked by slow mutants. Creatures who are remnants of unnamed catastrophe, which King has referenced vaguely in other Dark Tower books. Roland wakes up in a hospital tended by the Sisters of Illyria, whom the gunslinger slowly realizes are actually vampires. One of the sisters, a young woman named Jenna, attends to his wounds, and the two slowly fall in love. Sister Jenna is one of the two great loves of Roland's life, adding a new dimension to the gunslinger's past. While the little sister of Valyria does not factor into the main Dark Tower narrative, King gives us a valuable look at both the narrative universe and Roland right before things truly fall apart. We've seen glimpses of Roland's origin story, such as his early test of manhood in the gunslinger, but this is a mature Roland who is still vulnerable and even hopeful. So that's kind of his explanation. You've mentioned you haven't read it yet, because ultimately you really haven't dove into short stories at all for King.
Not really.
Except for you've done If It Bleeds, you've started If It Bleeds. Have you done different seasons?
No.
See, that's the thing. If you haven't done that, you probably haven't done any, because that's usually where everyone starts, because there's only like 4 stories and 3 of them are like all-timers.
Yeah.
Shawshank is
Rita Hayworth in the Shawshank Redemption?
Probably probably the all-timer. But yeah, that's usually that's like would probably be the barometer, because it is shorter. Some of the others are a lot longer, and there's like 15, 20 stories or whatever. But yeah, that's one you'll have to I can't remember which short story that one's in, or which collection that one's in.
I was just looking. That's what I was looking up as I was trying to see. Is it in a collection? Is it by itself?
It is. It's in one of the collections. I don't remember which one though. It's one of them that I've read. I'd have to look it up though.
I'm looking it up. Don't worry about that. Keep going.
But yeah, so ultimately, yeah, I'm not sure. I think with this one, I might rank it lower. I've not read it as many times as the rest of them, but I think that it's
in Everything's Eventual, the one you told me to get. I have that on my Audible.
That's right.
I have not listened to it, but it's on my Audible. That's why I was trying to search it on Audible. I was typing in the Little Sisters of Valyria, and it kept coming up with Everything's Eventual. I'm like, what the hell is this?
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, right there. Everything's Eventual.
Alrighty.
I have not done it yet.
But yeah, I think this one would maybe go lower to me just because it is disconnected. And I think I'd have a hard time. It's kind of like the Wind Through the Keyhole. I think I'd have a really hard time with Little Sisters or Wind Through the Keyhole, putting it up against the 7 primary books.
No, you have read this one, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I would have a hard time just because they are disconnected and they are wonderful stories. But I just think the 7 primary books, it's kind of like Rogue One. Like, I don't hold Rogue One as highly as some people do, because it's good, but it's just not.
Yeah?
it's not one of the big Star Wars movies. It's kind of a side thing, and there's just something that feels lesser in my mind about it. Not that it's bad. It's just that
you got a problem with Rogue One. Is that what you're saying?
No, the anniversary of it just happened.
Yes, it did.
But yeah, I don't know. It's just. I think that's just the vibe I have. That again, if I were gun to my head forced to do this, I would imagine that Little Sisters and Went to the Keyhole would be on the lower end, if not the very bottom for me. Not that they're bad, but just that the 7 primary are just like they're fucking bangers. It's hard to compete with them
for sure.
So in fact, that's why I always cop out with King rankings and keep Dark Tower out of there. Either let it be one whole entry or leave it off completely.
Yeah.
That's why I'm always like, favorite Stephen King. I'm like, favorite Stephen King standalone would be The Stand. And see, I just cage it that way because it's like, then I don't have to like even debate how do I rank The Stand versus The Dark Tower. Just say standalone and then I can put Dark Tower in another box.
Okay, which one would you rather have, The Stand or Dark Tower?
Go to hell.
I ask the hard questions on this show.
Let's see, anything in the chat that I missed?
Cody says, I have the Sisters as book 0.5 on my Dark Tower list. I have the poem Child Roland to the Dark Tower Came as book -1, and Eyes of the Dragon as book 0. And then Mark says...
And don't forget the emoji there.
Oh, no.
Thank you for that, Cody.
No. There, and then Mark says there is also a Dinky Earnshaw story in there.
Yeah, Dinky is in Everything's Eventual. Okay. So that's a very Dark Tower heavy. So maybe that one should be high on your list as a Dark Tower. I mean, we got to do Hearts. We're doing Hearts in Atlantis.
Yeah, I got Hearts in Atlantis. I got to read. I got. I'm going through the Holly Gibney stuff.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm not calling it the Mr. Mercedes trilogy anymore because it is no longer just the Mr. Mercedes trilogy. It is the Holly Gibney saga. Yeah. Where it's the 3 Mr. Mercedes stories, The Outsider, and then If It Bleeds. Just If It Bleeds. I remember the other 3 stories from If It Bleeds.
Yeah.
Mr. Harrigan's Phone, The Rat, and what's the third one?
Rat was the last one. Rat was the one I didn't like. The other ones I liked.
But then I found out a way to go right to where it says, if it bleeds starts. So I'm going to do that as well.
Whoa, God, Life of Chuck. Dude, I love that one.
Oh, yeah.
That one is fucking amazing.
That one was weird.
That one was batshit fucking crazy, and I loved every fucking second of it. Yeah. I knew I would be like pissed that I was forgetting because I knew some. Yeah, Rat I didn't like, but it's only because I think it shouldn't have been at the very end.
You think Holly should have?
Yeah, I think Rat should have been. It should have been Harrigan's Found, Life of Chuck, Rat, and then If It Bleeds. I think I would have enjoyed all of them more. So I think next time I go through it, and at some future date, I'm going to make sure to do Rat first, so that I can see if I can appreciate it more in that fashion. Yeah, and then let's see. Mark says there's also Dean Earnshaw story in there, and then another emoji there from Agamorphy. Gotta love that.
No,
and then Everything Eventual is Dinky's pre-story in the same volume. Yeah. So yeah, that's definitely a good one. And then I'm excited for you to be getting into the short story stuff, man. There's a lot of good shit.
Yeah, that's my goal for 2022 is some short stories.
Yeah. So we'll have to get back to that question about. We have some questions out there about short story stuff, so we'll have to circle back to those.
Yeah.
So then jumping into number 3 is The Drawing of the Three, book 2.
Wow.
Yeah, again, another
They're
one of those.
They're going to put Gunslingers number 1, aren't they?
Another one of those ones where it's like usually top 1 to 3. Like I'd say Wastelands and Drawing of the Three are usually 2/3 of the top 3 for most people. Like other ones vary, but I feel like those two are generally in that top 3 realm.
Yeah.
It says The Drawing of the Three is a remarkable novel. Unlike any other by King in that same era, the metaphysical territories the author explores rank with the best of the genre, as King uses Roland, Eddie, and Odetta, Detta, Susanna's inner space to explore aspects of each version of the worlds he visits through the doors. King shows us the New York City in 3 different time periods through Roland's eyes. This skewed perspective allows King to provide commentary on our society that is missing from the other books, which is true. I think that is probably the most earthbound of them, because the whole thing is kind of focused on earthbound for the most part. Like, because like book 3, what we just covered in our book clubs, like Jake's on Earth still, but like that's only half the story because the other half's still in Midworld. Like there is some stuff, of course, in book 2 that's whatever, but the central point of book 2 is Earth through those 3 different doors.
I think you would have to say that it comes second to Song of Susanna. Like the entire book basically takes place on Earth, so.
Yeah, I don't know if the Dixie Pig counts as Earth, though.
Dixie Pig doesn't happen that much in book 6. Go back and read it again, sir. It's all in book 7. Like, almost all of it is in book 7. That's what you were talking about earlier. There's that line that people can't draw there. The book 6 ends with Jake going into the Dixie Pig. Like, none of the stuff with the Dixie Pig happens in book 6.
Yeah. I think Cody says the short story collections are like treasure chests full of gems with a thumbs up emoji, which I agree, man. And the thing is that I did struggle on some, though, because there's just times you'll hit one short story that just isn't doing it for you. Not that it's bad. It's just not the mood. Because it's just like anything else, right? If you grab the wrong book when you're in the wrong mood, it's just not going to work for you.
Yep.
The problem is with the short story is you're not investing in a whole book. So when you're bouncing with like 15 different stories in one book, it's easy to, some of those short stories might be where you're just like, man, this is just not doing it for me. So that's a little bit hard, but overall there's some great shit, man.
Yeah.
And then Alan says Insomnia I thought would be a great series. Yeah, Insomnia is really good. I actually just read that one for the first time in 2021.
I just can't stand the audiobook.
Yeah, the audiobook's rough, man. I
can't stand it.
That's a rough one, man. That one is rough. Everything's Eventual has music too, but nowhere near as bad as
you talked to me about that.
But it's not in a bad way. Like it's just like its chapters are going in and out. Like there's some music that plays, but it's nowhere near where it overshadows the narrator.
There was
in
part of Insomnia where I couldn't hear what the narrator was saying. I'm like, what the motherfucker?
Yeah,
I was so pissed.
That was really bad. Like if there's one that needs to be like remastered or redone in some way, well, the Went Through the Keyhole's number 1 for me. We need to get that with George Guidall narrating
instead of King,
instead of Stephen King. And then next would be Insomnia. But the story of Insomnia is great, certainly. And then Agamorphy says that Alan, oh gosh, to adapt Insomnia is just nuts, just to convey auras and the man with the coats. Yeah, dude. But there's some crazy shit going on right now in with streaming services and stuff. There's just it's not the same black and white world it used to be. There's some crazy batshit stuff that people are getting away with.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful because it's no longer like in the 90s or whatever, like, there's only a couple TV stations. So you had to appeal to as many people as humanly possible. Mm-hmm. Now with all these streaming services and everything, it's like you can be very specialized. Like The Wheel of Time, for instance. Just saw a commercial for that while sitting in the theater the other night. And it's just like, dude, there's no way this ever would have happened in the old days because this doesn't have enough broad appeal. But when it's a streaming service, yeah, it's going to work. So it could definitely happen. So next up, let's see. So Drawing the Three. So yeah, that's his kind of synopsis of that. So for me, yeah, I think that it feels low, even though it's number 3, just because I don't know. I guess it's one of those ones kind of like Song of Susanna. I always assume is going to be toward the bottom. I always expect Drawing of the Three is probably going to be a number 1 or number 2 on most lists. So when it isn't, it's a little bit of a shock. I think that, I don't know. But again, it's one that I adore a lot. But yeah, next up, and it will prove that you are correct, sir, with your guess. Because number 2 is Wizard and Glass, book 4. As King stated in book 4's introduction, Wizard and Glass is the work of a man who understands the mature love of long marriage and middle age. He had to rediscover the intense teenage emotion that fueled Roland's affair with Susan Delgado. This is King's Romeo and Juliet, a tragic tale of two lovers whom fate will forever separate. This is also the origin of Roland's obsession with the tower. Metaphor for addiction. Roland will end up sacrificing nearly everything for his quest. And while Susan does not die by his hand, King strongly implies that Roland could have sacrificed her as well.
Strongly implies? I'm pretty sure he says it black and white.
Yeah,
he could choose to go save her, or he could choose the tower.
Yeah, but I think what he's saying though is she doesn't die at his hand. But what King's implies heavily is that if it were a thing where it's like, hey, Roland, to get to where you need to go, you need to shoot Susan. Like he may have done it.
Oh shit!
That kind of thing. All these elements come together seamlessly in Wizard and Glass, making it one of King's finest novels to date. Which I agree, man. I actually think that. Not only in the Dark Tower realm, I've seen a lot of people on social media I've seen that will answer different things I throw out there, where some people put Wizard and Glass as one of their all-time favorite King novels, like even outside of the Dark Tower. And, because really, I think it is, and we've talked about it multiple times, that if there was one book that you were going to give to someone as a standalone, it would be book 4 you can give to someone. Because, you'd have to worry about the Blaine stuff, or maybe even have them skip it and then just get right to the story. You could just give that to someone and say, hey, read this. And I think it would be... Yeah, it would be one that people can dig.
Yeah.
I do see this one though. The fact that it is at least high, it's top 2. I guess it's for me. It would probably maybe be 1. If it wasn't 1, it would be number 2. If it really came down to me having to do it, probably be like Drawing of the Three or Wizard and Glass would be those two would be the ones I'd be having to Harvey dent it to figure out which one's 1 and which one's 2. Because those are my favorites. What are your thoughts on that?
You'd probably be like, heads it's Wizard and Glass, tails it's Wizard and Glass.
I make my own luck.
Yeah.
Heads it's Wizard and Glass.
Yeah, heads it's Wizard and Glass, tails it's not.
It's Drawing of the Three.
It's not Drawing of the Three. Is what you would say.
No, then I have a 2-sided coin.
Yeah.
Make my own luck. Gotta go the whole Harvey Dent realm.
I think Wizard and Glass would be right around here for me as well. I do love that book. Young Roland, dude, give me Cuthbert all day.
And then also for you, you've got Eddie beating Blaine in this book. So
Eddie's time to shine.
Yeah, sure. I mean it's
Eddie. It's definitely top 5 moment for Eddie.
Yeah, it's Eddie's biggest moment in my.
I think it's up there. I
don't think there's a better moment for Eddie.
That's a discussion for Eddie, because he has a couple really good moments where he stands and is true. I mean,
certainly, but I think that's his biggest moment, because that's the moment where he saves the day more than anyone else. Mm-hmm. We just covered the whole doorway and stuff, and that's really one of the times where Eddie really has to shine, and he fails at first, but it's you don't even have that with Blaine. He just fucking owns it and he wins. And there's without him, they're fucked. He's 100% the MVP. He's the only reason they survive.
Yep.
I just don't think there's ever a time that it is so much on him. There's other times that he's part of the team and he does immaculately in his role. But for a time where he is the shining star, I don't know if, it would be. You could throw some others out there, but in my mind, there's.
You're going to say shining star. How about the absolute destruction of Tower? Roland doesn't do shit. He knows it's Eddie's thing. He stands aside and is like, "Let's Hurricane Eddie come through and absolutely wreck the town that is Tower."
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're talking about where it's Eddie's time to shine, holy shit, dude. But it is. I would still pick Blaine over that.
Yeah.
For you said MVP. It's actually MVG, Most Valuable Gunslinger. We got to make sure to trademark that. The MVG.
Oh, man. Because we talked about that in our spoiler section of the last book club, just about the fact that that whole doorway thing is probably debatably maybe the most...
his trial by combat, basically.
Well, no, not just him, but for the whole team. Like, in terms of, like, the gunslinger team.
Right.
Like, them working together as a team where every single one of them have an element to play.
Yep.
It's probably the number one. I think the only other debate was... the Wolves is probably the only other time that you could really debate about them all playing a huge part in something. So
they all try their thing with with Blaine, but again, like you said, it all comes down to Eddie. If Roland, Susanna, I wanted to say Susan for some reason, and Jake were not there, it still would have been fine for Eddie. But if you take Eddie out, they're fucked.
Yeah. I think what we said in the spoiler section was a total team win.
Yeah.
Like where you need every single person top to bottom to do their part. And I think that, it comes down to, in my mind, that door thing is probably the number one thing. But I do think the Wolves is the one that you could probably throw out there as a debate. But throughout the...
Ciento is the other one. Those are the ones.
Yeah, throughout the rest of the series, there's times that, like, the team is all involved, but a lot of times there's one person that really carries a lot of the weight and stuff, but just to have that total thing where like every single person plays a role, and that's why we just covered that, and the whole drawing of Jake.
Cody. That's a fantastic idea. We should make Tull a verb. Eddie told Tower. Eddie told Blaine.
And see, you just love it not only because it's Eddie, but because it's against Tower. It's like a double whammy for you.
It's extra sweet.
Like if Eddie could appear in that grocery store and dress down Mrs. Carmody.
He would not dress down Mrs. Carmody. He'd put 6 bullets in her fucking head.
Oh, man.
If a woman's trying to sacrifice a child to some god that she thinks needs a human sacrifice, Eddie Dean would put 6 in her head.
Yeah.
No hesitation. He'd be like, "I'm sorry, you're doing what?" He would fan that hammer so fast.
The thing with Eddie is he wouldn't need to, though. He would verbally destroy her.
Oh, he could talk the devil into setting himself on fire. Let's not forget.
There would be no followers for her at the end of it.
No. There would be no followers after 5 minutes. Eddie would absolutely destroy that cult.
Indeed. So then, of course, that leaves number 1 is the Gunslinger, book 1. And then his note here starts off, best way to start off. The man in black fled across the desert, and the gunslinger followed. King has never bettered the opening to the 1982's The Gunslinger, which is true. That's no. How hard would it be to top that line?
Good Lord.
Which introduces us to Roland of Gilead, son of Stephen, the last of gunslinger in the world that has moved on. The surreal Western was nothing like King's previous books. The latter installments would be more experimental or more sophisticated, but the first one set its own unique tone. The Gunslinger presented a stripped-down, deceptively simple premise, and King followed it down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
He says there is some set pieces in this book. Roland's chilling massacre of the town called Tull. The still compelling flashbacks to his early test for his guns. He and Jake's terrifying trip under the mountain on a handcart while surrounded by slow mutants. The cold, pitiless killer in this book gains back more of his humanity as the series goes on. Here, the challenge for the reader is to sympathize with such an enigmatic, ruthless character as Roland of Gilead. King has revised parts of the Gunslinger to make the series continuity more cohesive, but it has not diminished any of its power. Which, ultimately, if you really want to come down to the element of Roland being Roland, this is certainly the ultimate, right? This is where you really get the idea of who Roland is. And it really who Roland stays. When does Roland start changing? Probably him going mad in book 3 is probably the thing that really starts to soften him. Because that's where you start. That's where you start to see him be way more vulnerable. You see him like breaking down. And I think on the other side of that is when you start to see Roland acting differently. He suddenly tells a fucking joke, for Christ's sake. He's being compassionate to Jake. Like, there's just certain things that happen. There's like that madness thing is real. I mean, which all comes down to sacrificing Jake. But the thing is that didn't affect him until the dual mind thing happened. He wasn't sitting there fucking, kicking himself in book 2 about dropping Jake. Like, it wasn't like, so I think that might be the moment where you start to see Roland's kind of, because
redemption arc.
Book 1 and 2, Roland is Roland. Like, he's the same fucking guy. And he's the Terminator, right? He's the Clint Eastwood. He's the I'm trying to think of some of the other way people perceive him. He's just stone killer. Like, people look him in the eyes and they step back. Like, there's like, he's just got a killer everything, and he is a killer when it comes to Tull. So yeah, Book 1 and 2, there's a very consistent element of Roland, and it's, yeah, then when you start to get to the mind splitting, I think you start to see him kind of taken down a peg, and then from there you see him
start to change.
Yeah, you see that kind of that arc as he kind of starts to go upwards towards maybe a redemption.
Yeah.
So, let's see. Alan says, I'd say he starts changing at the way station, and yeah, I mean, I could kind of see that. He definitely,
except his actions on the beach don't signify a change.
Yeah, I think that, like, and I don't know, like, I think he's like kind of receptive to Jake, but I still feel like he's always like, Jake's at arm's length. I don't think he ever cares about Jake.
It's the boy.
Yeah.
It's the boy. It's not Jake. It's the boy.
Yeah. So
it's not Jake until Wastelands.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. I can kind of see where, yeah, he does start to act a little bit different once Jake shows up at the way station, but I don't know that it's enough of a change. I still think he's a fucking cold-hearted bastard through the first 2 books. It's like, just throughout, like in general, like, who knows? Maybe what it really comes down to, though, is door 3 when he sees Jake and makes the decision to intervene, which then, of course, is the spark that then starts the madness.
Maybe that's where he decides, and that's the turning point
where he's like, I'm not going to let it happen again, type thing. So, I don't know. Yeah. That's a fun little conversation. What am I missing in the chat? You keep smiling here.
Mark says, even though it's a tough read first time around, it's fucking awesome. The flashback within a flashback start. Tulling everyone in Tull. Meeting Jake, the speaking ring, the slow mutants, and the Palaver. So.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. And then I messed up here. Jethro told.
Oh yeah,
that's good from Agamorphy there. If we're gonna make toll a verb.
And Cody also says that Mrs. Carmody would leave with a fucking rupture.
Yeah.
Goddamn right she would.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. So I mean, the thing is, my first time I had a rough time with Book 1, but I've never had a rough time with it since. I do enjoy it. I'm in the middle of it right now. Yep. I don't at all like fault it. I don't know if that I would rank it this high, but I could easily see why some people do. Like, and the thing is I think that in my mind, I know some people debate it. I think this is the most divisive book in the series. Book 1.
Yeah.
Like, just simply because I have seen some people will rank it the highest, some people will rank it the lowest. Mm-hmm. I don't think any book swings to both extremes as much as this one. Unless like suddenly people started to rank Song of Susanna number 1, then it would probably top it because it's generally seen at the bottom for most people.
Oh yeah.
But this one I have literally seen at both ends of the spectrum, and no other book has that kind of swing to it. Maybe Book 4, because there are some people that don't really come around to Book 4 too. So Book 4 and Book 1 are the 2 that I'd say are the most divisive.
Okay.
But I think that it's closer to 50-50 with Book 1. You see there's more variance.
Yeah.
Book 4, there's some people that do not come around and they end up just not liking it. But I say that it's probably like a 20 percentile versus 80% that fucking love the book. Not that it's number 1, but 80% of people love the book that I've seen in general, anecdotally. So I would say that Book 1 is the most divisive, certainly. And I don't think there's any other book that gets skipped regularly. Like, we hear of people that, whether it was because of publication and stuff, that started in Book 2, and they read the argument and they went through and they started the series and they never read Book 1. Some people have been put on it that way by another reader that's read it, where it's like, hey, start here. Like, maybe the person well enough to know, like, I don't think you're going to dig Book 1 as much. So here, start here in this one. And then after you read Book 7, read Book 1.
Yeah.
Type thing. Because I think that's what really it comes down to for me, was like, just having more of a love and grasp of the world in Roland, that then I'm able to really appreciate Book 1. But it's cool to see, though. I do love to see it ranked up here, because I certainly would have, in my mind, my first gut check when I'm like, he's going to rank all the books. Song of Susanna is going to be last. 2 or 4 are going to be toward the very top. Gunslinger is probably toward the middle or even lower. Like, just when I kind of piece it in my head of how I'm guessing it might go, and I don't know, maybe that's kind of how I see it, at least right now.
You're not wrong. You're onto something there that we've talked about it before. Is like if we know someone who's like that. You talked and suggested it with my wife and everything like that. If she ever gets back to, wanting to read the series again, I'm absolutely going to have her try book 2 because I think that's where she got bogged down was book 1.
Yeah,
and everything. So I think you're 100% right with that. But as divisive, I don't think there's. I think you're right. There's not. I don't think there's another one.
Yeah,
it seems like there's fluctuation for some. I mean, I've even seen it here in the chat. I've seen some people say that they would have book 4 here or there and everything like that, but book 1,
yeah,
that's all over the place.
Yeah,
it's probably going to be the one, if we threw this out there for the fans to do, it would seriously be one that's in every single slot.
Yeah, I could see that definitely. Okay, so next up is one that I actually found some time ago, and it got sparked by another article. And I kind of put it away in my back pocket. And this is kind of a slower news cycle, which I thought would be fine for the call-in. But again, I always like to prep just in case nobody calls in. And so I decided, let's throw this out here. And it is The Death of Richard Bachman in 2 parts. And that's just my title. So the first part is going to be from Lilia's Library with a post titled Bachman Exposed. So we know, obviously, the Richard Bachman, the rough idea of the Richard Bachman story, but like there was some that mentioned it in a roundtable in the last couple months when I was just like, you know what, I really want to know the full skinny on this story. So I looked into it and I found this post on Lilia's Library, and then this led me to the second part, which I'll get to in a second. So part 1 from Lilia's Library. And in print or in italics, it says Steve Brown is the man who discovered that King had written all the Bachman books. Here he is to tell the story of how it happened. So
okay.
This is written from Mr. Steve Brown. And it says, so this is all from his perspective. And he says, when I read an advanced copy of Thinner, I was no more than 2 pages into it when I said, this is either Stephen King or the world's best imitator. I began to ponder that maybe this was King. More or less as a kind of game, not really seriously. I took a subway over to the Library of Congress to look up the copyright documents. So this is a guy, he was a Washington-based bookstore guy. He worked in a bookstore. So he took the subway to the Library of Congress. This is back in the 80s. And it says, all but the oldest were copyrighted by Kirby Macaulay, or in Kirby Macaulay's name. A big clue, as KM was King's agent. But not conclusive. Macaulay had many clients. I almost gave up at this point, as the oldest book was copyrighted before LC changed to an easy computer system, which is Library of Congress. But just to be anal about it, I insisted that the clerk go off and manually hunt down the document. She came back and handed it to me. There it was, Stephen King, Bangor, Maine. So I Xeroxed all the documents and went home. So that's how King got found. Is he ultimately is the first book, which is Rage. Was not, when he registered it with the Copyright Office, he registered it with his own name. Whereas the rest of them he had his agent do. So, and the fact that Library of Congress had switched to a computer system and the first one fell outside of that, if he would have just given up at that point, who knows how long it would have went.
Could still be to this day that we didn't know.
Oh, I don't know. It does sound, as we get into this a little bit, that maybe people are starting to catch on. Have you read, which Bachman books have you read? You've read. I don't
even know which ones are Bachman.
I know
I have read The Long Walk. I've read, what's the one down in Florida? Doomakey.
That one's not. That was much later. So the Bachman books, Rage, which is out of print, hard to find. Long Walk, Roadwork, The Running Man.
Nope.
Okay. And then Thinner. It's not listing it here, but it's because this is the publication of the Bachman books, and that's the ones it has in there. But then Thinner is the last one. That's the one that kind of got him sussed out.
Got.
So he Xeroxed all the things at home. He says, I admired and respected King and had no desire to do something that might hurt him. So I made a copy of everything and wrote out a letter explaining my research. I told him I loved to write some little article about this, but that if it was some sort of problem, if there was some sort of problem involved, to let me know, and I would promise to keep it quiet. I mailed the package to King, care of Kirby Macaulay. I expected at most a little note in return. It says 2 weeks went by. Then I heard a page over the intercom at a big bookstore I worked in. Steve Brown, call for Steve Brown on line 5. I picked up and a voice said, Steve Brown, this is Stephen King.
Holy shit.
All right. You know I'm Bachman. I know I'm Bachman. What are we going to do about it? Let's talk.
Holy shit.
So this is exactly why I wanted to hunt this story down, because I figured there was a good story behind all this. So he says, it hadn't occurred to me that he'd call, so I hadn't bothered to give my number or even the name of the bookstore. He had spent the whole afternoon calling every bookstore in D.C. to find me.
Holy hell.
So King was just calling bookstores. Steve Brown worked there? Steve Brown worked there? So that's another fun little note. Anyway, we chatted for a while, and he gave me his unlisted home phone number and told me to call him in the evening. I ran out and got a tape recorder with a telephone attachment and interviewed him for 3 nights straight over the phone. He was very relaxed and very funny throughout. He didn't seem at all upset that I had found him out. He was extremely gracious and said that he wouldn't talk to anyone else but me outside of simply admitting it. That mine would be the only lengthy interview on the subject.
Wow.
So, and honestly, even Futurebound, he's mentioned it here and there in books. Like I think On Writing, he mentioned it a tiny bit. But I don't know that I've got this kind of detail anywhere else. Wow. So, yeah, he's like, oh, like whatever. So that's kind of interesting. Oh yeah, and then Mark saying Blaze is technically a Bachman book edited by King. Yeah, so there's a few. When I googled it, I think it pulled up as that one where they published the Bachman books, and it was just those 4 in there. But there was a few others, and it says it took a while for me to get it in shape and find a publisher. During this time, King kept in contact and told me that more and more people were reading Thinner and were coming after him. Finally, I published in the Washington Post. From there, it went everywhere. So, of course, the way newspapers work, the Washington Post will post something, or the Associated Press or whoever, and then what will happen is like the Salt Lake Tribune or whoever will pick it up.
Say via AP.
And they'll just post the exact same article. So then local newspapers across the country. So I basically went to a thing, Post does it, and then everyone in the country picks it up and goes. But it sounds like it may not have been state secret too long, because it said more and more people had read Thinner and were coming after him. So it sounds like Thinner kind of exposed him a bit in terms of style. It says my interview, in parentheses, it says, with all the dirty words the Post made me take out, has been reprinted in the Underwood Miller collection of essays on King titled Kingdom of Fear, for those interested. Which I looked it up. That one's only available used currently, but it still might be worth something I might look into. And it says, I stress that there was never any hint of blackmail, that King talked to me of his own free will and gave me a lengthy interview at his suggestion, not mine. I think that he knew the truth was going to come out anyway, and he liked the idea that that this nobody book clerk in Washington getting the story instead of the New York Times or something.
Yeah.
And he says, I should also stress that I did all of this out of simple respect for the man, and because to me, it was a wild, weird, and kind of cool game. I did not, quote-unquote, cash in at all. King mentioned me by name in the intro to the original edition of the Bachman books, but that has since vanished in current editions. So this guy's name is kind of disappearing from the record in some ways. And I don't think that King gave the guy's name when I've read it. I think I've read just a quick overview of the whole thing, probably On Writing, and I don't think he mentions the guy's name. But again, not nowhere near the detail that what he just did. But the next thing I've got is the actual Washington Post article.
Okay,
so we'll get into that, and it's really interesting, dude. Not only for this Bachman thing, but this is a very, very interesting time period for King. So there's some time capsule stuff almost in this that are like fucking crazy good.
Okay,
so I was really happy to find this. So that's the first one from Lily's library. So then the next one here, and then the other thing is on the screen here is the picture that they put in the Bachman novels is that guy there. So the next one is part 2. This is by Stephen P. Brown in the Washington Post from April 9th, 1985. So again, just think in your mind, 1985, kind of an interesting time period for King.
Yep.
So then it starts off here. It says, novelist Richard Bachman died of exposure earlier this year. I helped kill him. So again, first person article here. He says, my involvement began when I read Bachman's 5 novels. Gradually, it dawned on me that they could only have been written by one man, and it wasn't Richard Bachman. It had to be Stephen King, the self-described quote literary equivalent of a Big Mac inside of fries, who had become one of America's most popular living writers. My suspicions drove me to the Library of Congress for a look at Richard Bachman's copyrights. All but one were in the name of Kirby McCauley, who was King's agent, but the earliest Bachman book, Rage, was in King's own name. I sent him a letter detailing what I had found and waited for a dissembling reply. Instead, one day the phone rang. So he was expecting King to lie and try to cover it up, which is hilarious. And then has the same line repeated here in this article back in '85. Steve Brown, this is Stephen King. Okay, you know I'm Bachman. I know I'm Bachman. What are we going to do about it? Let's talk. The birth of Richard Bachman was much less dramatic than his death. Rage, a paperback, was published in 1977 by New American Library and archived and achieved obscurity almost immediately. But by Bachman's fifth book, Thinner, published in hardback last November, much of the audience was beginning to a much bigger audience was beginning to form. The book now stands at number 3 on the New York Times bestseller list and number 6 on the Washington Post. So Thinner kind of hit big.
All right.
So that's interesting. Let me pause real quick about I saw something come in the chat. Cody said, I feel like Bachman was a way for King to put a toe across the acceptable topic line. Some of the Bachman books are a bit extreme, a stretch even further than King had gone. And I think there's a lot of different things involved here. And some of this will actually talk about some stuff, but it does mention there's tonal differences a little bit with the Bachman books. And he says, before Thinner, King said, the Bachman books are dropping down a well. I'd get 50 or 60 fan letters a week, more if there was a movie or a paperback or something out. Bachman was getting me 2 letters a month. So definitely not, because obviously there was some kind of address that it was going and then getting forwarded to King where he'd still get letters to Bachman. So, 50 or 60 letters a week versus a couple a month for Bachman. So definitely not any kind of notoriety.
Yeah.
I never thought much about working at keeping Bachman a secret. I didn't have to. But when Thinner came out, it was like carrying your own groceries home in a shopping bag in the rain. Gradually, the bag softens and begins to tear, and things start to fall out. So things started to fall apart there. That's all a quote from King. And it says, gradually, word began to leak out from a number of places. King was besieged by reporters, fans, and booksellers. Then another quote from King. He says, I ducked calls from Good Morning America, King said. My hometown paper has been on my case. Some big bug at Walden B. Dalton, one of the chains, called NAL, which is National American Libraries, the publisher. He then goes into doing that on NAL, so we'll just do that going forward for that. And said, look, we think that he's king. If you tell us, we won't advertise it or anything, but we'd order 30,000 more copies.
Wow.
But NAL kept saying, no, he's not him. ABC News and Entertainment Tonight had been bugging me every other day for the past 2 months. All of a sudden, it began to pop up everywhere. It wasn't just from you. It was from everywhere, all at once. I'll keep denying it for a while, but I'm not in the same league as G. Gordon Liddy. So a little bit of old political humor there. The beleaguered King released the basic information to his hometown paper, the Bangor Daily News, in February. From there, the story spread until Thinner's first appearance, March 3rd, on the bestsellers list. NAL immediately shipped flyers to booksellers stating Stephen King writing as Richard Bachman. Plans are being made for a 1-volume reissue of the 4 out-of-print paperbacks, which is the one that I just referenced. King has reluctantly allowed this to happen, but he is sensitive about the career of his spectral twin. Because King didn't need Bachman for the money, he needed him to get his books published, which is what kind of the story I've always heard. King throws off novels like sparks from a grinding wheel. He is spiritually kin to the great pulp writer of the century's beginning, writers like Edgar Rice Burroughs, who turned out novels with the regularity of lunar cycles. But the sheer size of King's audience has put him into a conflict with one of the paradoxes of modern publishing. The more popular he becomes, the less frequently his publishers are willing to publish him, which that just makes no fucking sense.
No, that doesn't.
And then here's a quote from Kirby McCauley, King's agent. It says, publishers have a superstition about publishing more than 1 book a year from a single author, said Kirby, Stephen King's agent. There are a few best-selling writers who write more than 1 book a year, and a few of them have but few of them have as much quality in their books as Steve does. He doesn't need the money anymore, but he loves to write. King readers couldn't care less about the niceties of publishing. They just want more King, which
Yes.
Sounds like us.
Yeah.
And this is before we were born, but still sounds like us. And it goes on here, a quote, and this is a quote from King. He says, "I know how they feel. It's something that has been nagging me constantly throughout my career. I was aware 8 years ago that the production of my fiction was out of control. I was also aware that the publishers are reluctant to publish more than 1 or 2 books a year, and I've always published 3 or 4 books, and I'm always 3 or 4 books ahead. I've been feeling frustration at having this stuff pile up for a long time. Right now, I'm in the process of constructing a deal that in either 1986 or 1987, I'm going to publish 4 novels, all under my own name. And when I pull up the list, that actually never happened. But in 86, it came out. It was the only book. But then 87 did have 3 books come out: Drawing of the Three, Misery, and Tommyknockers. So I wonder if that's the 4 he's talking about, which that's an insane stretch of books there. Going back to this, he says they're not going to sit around anymore. I'm waiting against the tide of editors and publishers shaking their heads and saying, no, you can't do that. Why can't I do that? I say, there'll be a glut in the market. You'll cut the sales legs from under the books. If that were going to be a glut on the market, it would have been the year that 5 movies came out. The critics were laughing about it. Stephen King movie of the month. Which is a good point from his perspective.
Yeah.
Like, there was a period there where his movies were coming out constantly. Mm-hmm. So, and then he goes on and says, and all those paperback tie-ins. Then Pet Sematary came out. The hardback sales of that book doubled anything I had done before. Which is always something interesting to think about. The Pet Sematary was one of his bigger hits early on, because that's such a dark book.
Yeah.
And then it says, so in 1977, Stephen King begat Richard Bachman. During Bachman's 8-year career, King had very few people who knew his true identity and kept it secret. For years prior to the publication of Thinner, King fended off the occasional query with the story that Richard Bachman was a New Hampshire chicken farmer, a man whose cancer-ravaged face made it impossible for him to meet or talk with anyone. That's a fun little.
Right.
That's a fun little way to avoid any media things.
Yeah.
And he says the poor guy was one ugly son of a bitch. King said. Then he goes on here. It says King, of course, is already a household name. Brian De Palma's film Carrie was out with Sissy Spacek's performance, pushing the movie into the national consciousness, and the name of Stephen King along with it. That year, the paperback of Salem's Lot had gone straight to the top of the bestsellers list, and The Shining had just come out in hardcover. King had already completed that first draft of novels that wouldn't see print for years to come. Books like The Dead Zone, Cujo, and Firestarter. There were as well 4 other long completed novels vying for spots on King's ever restrictive publishing schedule. So we're talking about some all-timers there. I mean, I love The Dead Zone. Firestarter is one of your favorites. Cujo's an all-time. So I can imagine how frustrating it would be for him to not be able to.
I've never thought about the frustration factor for King to being handcuffed like that, where it's only 1 a year. You're going to saturate the market. It's like, yeah. But I'm getting behind.
Yeah, and now we're at a spot where yearly King is doing 2 books, 3 books if we're lucky. That's so. Luckily, that's a long dead thought process.
Yeah.
It says King had decided to do something with Get It On, one of those completed novels that he was fond of. It was different from his usual work, and he was afraid that quote it wouldn't be. Or that he was afraid that quote would become a book the parade had passed. He contacted editor Eleanor Coster from New American Libraries, and says King's paperback publisher from the beginning. Coster and National American Libraries agreed to publish the book under an assumed name. I was emphatic about not wanting the book to be publicized, King said. I wanted it to go out there and either find an audience or disappear quietly. The idea was not to just publish a book that I thought, quote, felt very strongly the difference between selling commercially and selling because I loved what I was doing. I allowed the Bachman novels to be published because I felt that nobody was going to get cheated. I thought that the books were very much alive, and that's not true of everything in my trunk, Stephen. And that's the end of the quote. Stephen King was good, but to honestly try to create another name that wouldn't be associated with my name, or I guess this is still part of the quote. He's quoting within quotes here, so it's getting confusing. Associated with my name, it was like having a Swiss bank account. So yeah, again, that's how I've always heard it. Is he wanted to publish more, and doing it under another name was the only way to do it.
Yeah.
The manuscript for Get It On circulated around NAL's editorial offices under the name Guy Pillsbury, which was King's grandfather, but it leaked out that Pillsbury was Stephen King, so Stephen King withdrew, retitled it quickly, submitted the manuscript as Rage. Then they called me up, King said. They asked me what name I wanted on it, and there was a Richard Stark book on my desk and a Bachman-Turner Overdrive on the stereo. So I told them Richard Bachman, which is like Mrs. Doubtfire to me.
That is like straight out of like Hollywood. Like someone looks up and sees bar.
Yeah.
Library. Oh, my name's Bar Library.
Yeah.
It's funny to see that.
Yeah, exactly. In the ensuing 8 years, NAL published 3 other Bachman paperbacks, The Long Walk, Roadwork, and The Running Man. Hardly anyone noticed, until Thinner. In 1982, King finished a new supernatural thriller. It ran 300 pages, fairly short when compared to the 500-page reader-saturated novels he was known for. That same year, Richard Bachman's 4th novel, The Running Man, was published. That was the last of the original 4 pre-Carey books. So those are ones that he wrote before he was anything. But there were many other books waiting to be published under King's name, so he decided to make Thinner a Bachman novel. It was the beginning of the end for Richard Bachman's career. Thinner was too obviously a Stephen King novel, which, I mean, I haven't read Thinner, but I know the basic premise, and yeah, that feels very King.
Is it?
Yeah, it's like the guy starts to like lose weight like supernaturally, and I think, isn't that Thinner? Or
I don't know.
Let me.
That's why I was waiting for you to tell me.
I think that's what I'm starting to doubt myself that I'm thinking of the wrong one here, or like maybe mixing up with a short story. Yeah, Bill Hackney, an obese upper-class lawyer who lives with his wife Heidi and their daughter Linda. Billy recently defended an underworld crime boss. This is a longer thing here. Let me just. Yeah, let me see if I can find something that's got just a short little thing and not. That was just like the Wikipedia, like.
Oh, the first
plot
summary,
thing. Yeah. Let's see. Stephen King. Oh, yeah. Alan says, yeah, native curse. Yeah, so Billy Hack commits a vehicular homicide when his lack of attention to driving results in the death of an old lady on the street. Overweight Bill Halleck is the lawyer with connections, and gets off with a slap on the wrist. After his trial, a gypsy curses him with a single word, Thinner. Halleck begins to lose weight uncontrollably and must pursue the band of gypsies who are responsible for his dwindling condition.
Holy shit.
So, dude, does that not just scream Stephen King?
Yeah.
Like, there's, yeah. Yeah, so it was too obviously Stephen King. Published in hardcover with heavy advertising, it lacked the anonymity of the previous 4 paperback publications. So I think that's the thing too, is it sounds like there was way more publication for Thinner, even before it was known that it was King, whereas the other ones were just kind of released quietly and thrown out there and just kind of died on the vine. Then there was even an enthusiastic letter sent to booksellers by editor Coster as the publisher of some of the finest horror novels ever written.
Sorry. Rachel in the chat says he literally says it's like a Stephen King novel in the book.
Yeah, that gets covered in here.
Oh, does it really?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
No worries.
Good job, Rachel.
Yeah. So, it's some of the finest horror novels ever written. It takes a lot to get me excited about new horror writers. Such a writer has now appeared. So again, even the publishers are hyping up Thinner, not saying it's King, but they're hyping it, and so it created a way more of a stir than the other ones had.
Okay.
So that doesn't help, along with everything else. Then another quote from King. He said, I had been put under a lot of pressure for a long time, says King. NAL wanted me to come over and do NAL hardcovers, which I had been reluctant to do, but I thought Thinner was a strong book. It's not like the other Bachmans. It's more like a Stephen King novel, and it has a chance to be commercial. I asked NAL if they wanted to do this book in hardcover, and they were very enthusiastic. People NAL didn't know who the hell Bachman were enthusiastic. They published it hard, partially, I think, because they wanted to show me what they can do with hardcovers. And he says, I originally went to New American Library full time because they published the Bachman novels. It was through the Bachman books that I actually got to know the people over there, really real people. I was able to go to Doubleday and negotiate with the sure knowledge that if they pass on the deal that I was offering them, that I'd be able to get NAL to go to NAL as Stephen King, because they had been so good to my friend Richard Bachman. So that's always fun. Doubleday was King's first hardcover publisher. Most recently, his novels have published by Viking Press, which again, this is a time capsule, so that's all different now, of course.
Yeah.
King is famous, or infamous, depending on which critic you listen to, for his use of brand name detritus in modern culture. Throughout his work, he invokes the name of his most familiar household products to deepen the intense realism of his best fiction. In a wry acknowledgement of his own omnipresence in our daily lives, King uses his own brand name in Thinner. Quote, you're starting to sound like a Stephen King novel for a while there. So I guess that's actually a line in the book. Like, a character says that you're sounding like a Stephen King novel, probably because the guy's saying, like, I'm losing weight because of a gypsy, like, and then another character, I don't know, I'm just guessing by what this context is saying. But yeah, so as Rachel pointed out, yes, so
wow.
Self-referential, I guess, doesn't start with Song of Susanna for King. The New American Library managed to keep Richard Bachman's identity secret for 8 years, which was a remarkable feat, considering the intense scrutiny Stephen King's every utterance is given by his legions of fans. And then Elaine Coster, this is a quote from her. She says, I wanted to jump up and down and say, this is Stephen King, she remembers, but I couldn't. We had so many questions over the years, but we never led anyone to believe that it was Steve. We just stonewalled it, even though it would be to our advantage not to, which is, I got to give them credit for that.
Yeah.
For 8 years to hold that secret when you know, if all you went and said, oh yeah, Bachman, Stephen King, every one of those books would probably become a bestseller. Like, that's financially is a big thing. So kudos to all of them for keeping it secret.
Yeah.
It says, it became a mission for me to respect Steve's privacy. We were so secretive that our chief executive officer, Bob D'Onofrio, didn't even know.
Holy shit.
So their CEO didn't even know that Bachman is Stephen King.
Damn.
That's killer. I love that. One piece of subterfuge was the placement of a stranger's picture on Thinner's dust jacket. The face staring at the reader with an amused detachment is Richard Manuel, an old friend of Kirby Macaulay's. An old friend of Kirby Macaulay's. Manuel lives in Roseville, Minnesota, a St. Paul suburb, where he works as a builder of energy-efficient homes. Quote, I didn't tell anybody, says Manuel. I was sworn to secrecy. Some friends called and said, hey, Dick, there's a guy that looks like you who's writing books in New Hampshire. Even my sister called me and said that.
Oh, really?
So he was getting some stuff. Macaulay said that he and King picked Manuel because, quote, we had to find someone who lived a long way from New York. If there would have been a chance that someone in New York City would recognize Richard Bachman, there was a chance that someone in New York would recognize Richard Bachman walking down the street. So that's why they picked someone far off, because you don't want some person getting accosted in Times Square.
No, not in New York.
And then it goes on here, it says, I think Bachman books are pretty lively, King says. I feel very ambivalent about my life and my writing at times, partly because I went to college, which is never really a good thing for guys like me. I felt very strongly that the difference between selling commercially and selling because I loved what I was doing. I allowed the Bachman novels to publish because I felt that nobody was going to get cheated. I thought that the books were very much alive, and that's not true of everything in my trunk. For example, there's a very long unpublished novel that's pretty bad, but if I thought the Bachmans were bad books or if I was publishing them out of some sense of vanity, then I wouldn't have allowed them to go out under any circumstances. Which, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just like, these don't really make my cut. I'll just put them out under a different name. Like, it wasn't that. He actually thought they were good books. It does make me wonder what this long unpublished thing is, or if it ever came out. Like, I think to myself, like, the Under the Dome, like, I'm not thinking that would be it, because I know he wrote that splitting the cow scene was written, or the woodchuck or whatever was. He said he wrote that like in the late 70s or early 80s, and then just like threw it away into a trunk and whatever. So I don't think he wrote like the whole thing, but it still makes me wonder.
It is a woodchuck.
The JFK thing was also 11/22/63.
Yeah.
He said he had that idea way early on, but he just knew he could never. He knew he didn't have the I don't know what, but
the grit.
Yeah, he knew he didn't have what he wanted to for that book to write it earlier on. But
what it turns out he needed was his son.
Yeah, exactly, for the sci-fi stuff.
Yeah.
And then it says, I never felt any urge to let Bachman be anything but Bachman, King says. He had kept careful control to make sure the publishers wouldn't go wild promoting the book if Bachman's true identity came out. Thinner will go on selling as Richard Bachman, says King. I'd like to see Thinner sold aggressively because I'd want that for Dick's last book. So, Thinner marked a change in King's attitude towards his alter ego. No longer was Bachman the repository for unpublished early works, books that didn't fit well into King's career. Had the secret remained hidden, there were plans for New Hampshire. There were further plans for a New Hampshire chicken farmer. And this is an interesting thing here. He says, there was a book that I had thought would become the next Bachman novel, King said. It's a novel called Misery. It's got a Bachman feel to it. So I thought, let's say that Bachman sells 30,000 copies of Thinner in hardcover. Let's say that doesn't become a bestseller, but it does pretty well. If I could come back with another hardcover, I think that could have made that guy a bestseller in 2 or 3 years, completely on his own. And then a lot of people would have complained, saying, "Hell, he writes just like Stephen King. He must be another imitator." The Literary Guild took Thinner, and I heard comment from one reader that this is what Stephen King would write like if Stephen King could really write. That's great. But yeah, so I've always known that too, that Misery was going to be a Bachman, which makes sense because it doesn't feel as King. Like I could see that being a little bit more Bachman-y, kind of like The Long Walk, right? There's nothing in The Long Walk that screams King like Thinner does.
No, for sure.
This is, of course, King has several other projects in the works. His 600-page plus short story collection Skeleton Crew will be published in June by Putnam. There will be an original movie, Cat's Eyes, which is expected to be on screen soon. So, again, Skeleton Crew, we just talked about that with the monkey. Yep. So, that one. This fall, there is scheduled to be another movie, Silver Bullet.
Werewolf.
This is a year in the life of a werewolf, told in 12 small pieces, each set during the different full moon. It is based on Cycle of Werewolf, a novella published in 1983 by Lands of Enchantment Press in a profusely illustrated limited edition. NAL will soon be bringing out a trade paperback edition. Even Richard Bachman's has a film deal in the works. The Long Walk and The Running Man are both scheduled to become films, says King. Now that Bachman stories are coming out, the happiest people in the entertainment business are the little production groups in L.A. that optioned The Running Man a couple of years ago.
That turned into an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie.
So The Running Man was optioned before anyone knew Bachman was King. So the people that optioned that didn't even realize they optioned a King thing. So when it all came out, they knew it was King at that point.
They went, yay!
Yeah, that's like investing in, like Microsoft on accident, and then 10 years later you're rich,
Yeah, or Amazon when it was just selling books.
Yeah, when it was like $6 a share or something.
Oh, that hurts to think about.
Their option was about to run out, and they only had a few days left when they heard rumors. They came to Kirby and said, "We're going to lose the option, aren't we?" Kirby called them up and extended their option as though it were still Richard Bachman that they're playing with. It's an odd parallel with my own career. Carrie was turned into a film right away, and it was a lucky hit. It shortened the whole business of becoming a success and having my work come to people's attention. So it sounded like they might actually get a Bachman one out even before it got revealed.
Yeah.
One long awaited project that doesn't look as if it will happen is a publication of The Complete Stand. Several hundred pages were cut from the published version, and rumors of a restored edition have been circulating for years. But King says no, the legal complications are too great. It won't be coming out, he laments.
Yes, it does.
So, dude, again, that's 5 years before that happens.
Yeah.
So, and what I love is the fact that it's rumored and stuff. Like, it's just snapshot into time in this time period where it's just like, man, apparently people knew about the Stand edition and stuff. So that's really cool. Let's see. And then it says, Nearing Completion is another book that has long been a source of rumor. It is a Bible-length manuscript titled It that is reportedly King's magnum opus. So, again, the timing on this is insane. It may well prove to be the definitive horror novel. But as always, which has always been the case with King, though, it only is structurally a horror novel. Quote, it is about kids, King says. It's like a gigantic mad over exposition of the body from different seasons. I've been working on the rewrite, and I'm surrounded by a huge manuscript. It has had me obsessed for years. There are times when I think I ought to just burn it. But it is going to be pretty good. You'll like it. So
yeah,
that's an interesting quote there. It would be easy to say that Richard Bachman was simply a vehicle for King to move his earliest works out of his trunk. To a certain extent, that is true. Although he speaks of a quote Bachman feel to a novel, King does not acknowledge Bachman as a separate persona. And then a quote from King, he says, "I only wrote one of those books, Thinner, with Bachman in mind," King says. "It was never the case with, like Donald Westlake used to say, that he wrote as Westlake on sunny days and Richard Stark on days when it rained." But that chicken farmer with the ruined face has written 4 novels that are unlike King's own work. They are novels of simple stress without the artificially high drama of the supernatural. Stephen King in a minor key, which that's an interesting way to explain Bachman novels.
Yeah.
Like music. All of the Bachman books are sad books, says King. They all have downbeat ending. I don't think the ending of the novel is particularly important, though. A lot of people do. I'm more interested in how people react along the way. As far as we're concerned, we're all going to come to an unhappy end.
That's bleak.
Yeah, that's bleak. Thanks, Steve. And this is probably coked out Steve back in this day in 1985. Yeah. So. Then he goes on and says they didn't fit into his career very well, says Kirby McCauley. He was known for his supernatural horror novels, and his fear was that would lead his audiences astray. Steve King, though, thought of Cujo as more of a Bachman book. There was nothing supernatural about it, and it certainly had a downbeat ending. Thinner, retrospectively, should have been a Stephen King novel, and Cujo should have been a Bachman novel.
Ooh.
So that's an interesting thing from his agent.
Yeah.
Which is true. I mean, when you say bleak ending, I think that Cujo falls in there. Maybe not the highest, because I think Pet Sematary probably is number 1 on that. But that, of course, is supernatural.
Chris says in the chat, I'm reading Blaze right now, Richard Bachman, 2007, his final Trunk novel. It just reads to me like a standard Stephen King book. And he says hi, by the way.
Oh, what's up, Chris? Yeah, so then it says, viewed against the background of King's more famous works, the Bachman novels seem thin and unpolished with the exception of Roadwork, a fine, thoughtful novel by any standards, yet they all have the classic Stephen King quality about them. The page-flipping narrative drive, the inability to tell a boring story. Readers love it. And then the last thing here is a quote from King. It says, I don't know why that is, muses King. Sometimes I read the stuff aloud and it's not there. Whatever it is that people like, it's just not there to me. It's there when I write it, but it's not there when I pick it up. I've read in reviews for years that I don't have any style. With my kind of prose, I could be starving. So just a fascinating article. Like I said, I wanted to dive into this stuff at one point because of something that we mentioned with Bachman, and I just wanted to hear the whole story. And then it was just all such a good story, and there's a lot of cool stuff like time capsule wise in there. The extended stand, the fact that it was like the point where he's like, I should just burn this. Like
Cujo should have been a Bachman.
Yeah, there's just a lot of fun stuff in there. And again, it's all written by the guy that finally discovered it. So it's a lot of fun. I wanted to hit it before the year's over. And like I said, this episode, we didn't have as much news, so I figured that'd be a good time to read through that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it for that section. Let's go on to the odds and ends. The first one here is Stephen King telling a funny story on Twitter.
Okay.
So he's just writing some random tweet. So New York Times asks, how should a man write about a woman? The answer, I think, is to listen and observe. Then you still won't get it more than half right on your best day. And then so just a random tweet. But then this guy responds and says, is there any truth to the story that you were signing books in Alice Springs and the bookstore owner told you off because they didn't recognize who you were? So the only reason I was going to probably would have brought this up anyway, but the main reason it made the cut is because we had the discussion last episode, I think, last roundtable, where you were saying you didn't think that King was that recognizable. And I was like, that's insane, dude. Everyone knows what Stephen King looks like. So kind of proving your point a little bit. I mean, I don't know how long ago this was.
Authors are one of those ones that
I just feel
if you heard the name, yes, but seeing the face and you went, who's that man right there? People would go, oh.
I'm not saying that this discredits what you're saying, but I will say, if I did a person on the street thing, I bet you anything, more people would be able to pick Stephen King picture and say who he was more than Walt Disney.
I don't know about that.
I do. I do not think most people know what Walt Disney looks like, except for Disney people, like people that are
do like a 6-person lineup and be like, can you pick Walt Disney out of this?
No. Just show a picture and say, hey, who is this and who is this? And just see, because I don't think as many people know, because like, show me the Disney logo. Everybody in the fucking world knows what that is.
Yeah.
But how many people know what the man looks like? And I think King is one of those guys. He's been on so many late night shows. He's been on so much stuff. I just think that more than most authors, I think he's known. Again, not to discredit what you're saying, because maybe you're right. I mean, this bookstore owner, because here we'll get to the next part of the tweet.
A bookstore owner?
Here's the other part of the tweet. He responds, true thing. They put the cops on me. And then he gives a smiley emoji. So the guy called the cops on Stephen King. And it's a bookstore owner. Of anyone that should know.
That's
it should
what I'm
be
saying.
a bookstore owner.
You're saying a bookstore owner is going to be more knowledgeable about books and stuff like that, especially one of the greatest American authors of all time. But you're thinking that people on the street are going to know who Stephen King is?
I do. I think
No.
I think this. The problem is this is like an outlier. You know, like when you have like the bell curve. You know, this is the guy on the far fringes. As a bookstore owner that doesn't know who Stephen King looks like, let's just not judge. I think it'd be interesting if we ever got into a spot where we could set up some kind of person on the street thing. That would be something interesting.
Hell, I'll fucking do it right now. I'll go out and drive around and be like, "Hey, do you know who this is?" And record it. I'll do it.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I'd do it too. I mean, we'd only get Utah then.
I've always like been fascinated by those kind of things, though. I mean, I'm always curious about like, are people just like doing them for shock value, where it's like, oh, show a map of like America and ask like, what country is this, and then like, you know, do they ask 100 people and like the 10 people that don't know are the ones they show you,
yeah.
You know, just to be shocking or whatever.
Chris says, to be fair, Alice Springs is in the middle of the Australian desert.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it doesn't really specify what in terms of you know, who or where, but he does say that, but I don't know if there is another Alice Springs.
I Google Alice Springs and it comes up with Australia. It does not come with anything in the United States.
Okay, so yeah, it's just one of those ones like that's just generic enough that might be somewhere that's on it.
I can see it.
With Googling it, yeah. If you're saying that nothing else shows up, then maybe that certainly is it. But I think it's maybe an outlier. But again, I'm not completely discrediting what you're saying. I just say that I think King is recognizable. Maybe not like massively. He's not like an actor, right? It's not like Robert Downey Jr. type thing where everyone's going to know who he is.
That's what I'm saying.
But I do think that he's more. I don't. Is there another author out there that would probably be more recognizable than him? By
J.R.R. Martin. George R.R. Martin.
George R.R. Martin, yeah, because nerd culture did latch on him.
Yep.
The Harry Potter lady, I don't know if I'd be able to pick her out of a lineup.
I could not pick her out of a lineup.
I don't know what she looks like.
Nope.
Yeah, but in general, it's like, so I think King, and I
couldn't pick John Grisham out of a lineup.
No,
I've never read one of his novels. I know who he is.
I think I just saw a picture like recently of him like talking to like the like intelligence age community or something, like an old picture from the old days, and I was like, oh my god, that's what he looks like. Not that I remember what he looks like now, but I remember seeing that picture and going, huh, so that's what he looked like.
Oh, that's what Dan Carlin looks like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and then Cody says yes, it's in Australia, and then Chris says he might be recognizable in the U.S., but there's a lot more of the world out there, and yeah, that's true. Certainly, yeah. I
mean, he is an American author. It makes sense that his biggest popularity would be here, but if we go to the U.K., is anyone going to recognize him there at all?
Yeah, and then Cody says, I read an article explaining what this is about. I'll have to look for that, because yeah, I'm intrigued. I saw this tweet and I just had to share it, but like I didn't actually go digging for articles to like maybe further explain it all. But the mystery of it certainly had me laughing there.
Chris says that in Australia people would recognize J.K. Rowling over Stephen King.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's interesting. I mean, of course, there's part of me that wants to make the bad joke and say, you know, probably because Australia, you need to turn the picture of Stephen King upside down, then you'll recognize him. I don't know if that's a dad joke, but it's close.
No, it's not a dad joke.
It's getting close to that realm of like poor, not good humor. But
hey, dad jokes are great humor.
No, not at all. Not at all. So the next one though is Uncle Stevie recommends. And he said he tweets a thing of Servant season 3, which is the M. Night Shyamalan show. Which, first of all, I'm fucking shocked. How the fuck is that on season 3 already? How long has Apple TV been out? I don't think it's been more than a year, has it?
Apple TV's been out for like 2 or 3 years now.
That doesn't seem like
because
right.
Their big premiere one with Jason Momoa, Aquaman, is on like season 5.
That's crazy to me. I thought maybe Servant would be maybe season 2, not season 3. That's insane. But Stephen King tweeted it and said, can't wait for this. I've actually heard a lot of good things about that show, even if you're not an M. Night Shyamalan fan. So yeah, I at least wanted to share that for the old Uncle Stevie
it says
recommends.
Apple TV. Oh, it's Apple TV Plus, isn't it?
Yeah, Apple TV Plus, yes.
I got to put the plus. Sorry.
Chris has it November 1st, 2019. So yeah.
So 2 years.
10 years ago, 2019.
2019. Yeah, it feels like it. Time has no meaning.
10 years between January 1st, 2020 and December 31st, 2020. That 10-year period.
I'm going to go get a picture of me in like the first year of high school and be like, me, November 27th, 2019. And then put a picture of this mug up and be like, November 27th, 2021.
Hey, don't be threatening to bring out high school pictures, because I know what those look like.
I have pictures of you from high school.
No, you're the one that...
I look nothing like the man that I am now. I ate that kid.
Okay, so I actually don't have the email jingle.
No!
Because, I have it set up for the calls, so I don't have the normal thing. So, but I at least want to get an email before we close up shop here.
Hashtag Ted is terrible. He deserves that one.
Hey, I barely remember to get the damn opening thing put on my phone, because I have that plugged in instead of the tablet for that. And I didn't even think to put the email jingle or the oi.
You're a monster.
Yeah, I don't know. So first up, we've got Justin. Let's see. I can go ahead and change the old slideshow thing to where we're a little bit bigger too. Now that we're in the email section. So actually, we know what we'll do. We'll do both, because we have 2 emails in the bag right now. And that'll actually close us up to where I don't know that there's another outstanding email. So we'll be starting fresh in 2022. I almost said 21. I almost said 2021. So Justin starts off, and he has just a couple quick blasts here. He says, I'm listening to your podcast on the end. Drop that movie out of the canon. Little Sister of Illyria needs to be read first, and then the Marvel Universe, which, yeah, we're actually going to hit the Marvel stuff in 2022. We've dropped that.
Oh, the comics.
Yeah.
Sorry, you say Marvel, and I'm like, Spider-Man?
No.
We're gonna go see Spider-Man again?
Roland.
What?
Roland. And then he says, Patrick Danville is Stephen King's twin. Again, he just has these quick hitters. But that's an interesting thought, because Patrick does kind of have a pretty powerful creation / destruction, probably next to only King himself in terms of ability there. Of course, Susanna has the ability to kind of create, but she doesn't really have the ability to destroy necessarily in that same way. But Patrick certainly does, so that's an interesting little thought. And he says, another thing I noticed this cycle is the Scarlet Fields of Cancon Array is also like the fields of the poppies in Wizard of Oz.
Okay.
And I've never thought about that. But yeah, I was actually watching some on YouTube that was showing some clips from, and I don't think I even remembered that scene at all. Mm-hmm. The whole things where they fall asleep stuff. But I happened to see this email. I put it in the mailbag, and I was watching something completely unrelated. I didn't even think it was going to, but they ended up showing that scene specifically, and I was like, yeah, actually, I should have grabbed a picture. Actually, if I was thinking more ahead, I would have. But it's very Cancon Array looking. If you search Wizard of Oz Poppy Field, definitely feels like it. So that's what Justin has for us email wise.
Thanks, Justin.
Thank you, Justin. And then next up, we've got Tom from Australia.
Tom.
He says, hi, gunslingers.
Hi.
Says Tom from Australia here, wishing you good evening from across the pond. I've had an idea for a new book.
Wait, the pond?
Yeah.
Isn't that the Atlantic?
No, I just think it's ocean in general.
No, it's the lake then. The Pacific's way bigger. So it'd be across the lake, wouldn't it?
Pacific is fucking huge.
It's so big.
Yeah, it's fucking huge.
I was just happened to look at flights to Australia, just me and Lydia were talking about just dream.
Well, the problem is you're
vacations.
The problem is you're going against the time.
It is
too. So that's
you're
really
you're losing a day and a half or some shit like that. When you're time traveling.
Yeah,
madness.
There's someone that we work with that he goes to Japan on the regular, and he was telling me how freaking terrible it is because you're going against the time the whole way out. So that's
just
brutal.
It's like an 18-hour flight, in the air for 18 hours, What? That sounds horrible.
Yeah, and Alan saying it's a saying. Yeah, I think Peter's familiar with the saying. I think that he's always had it associated with the Atlantic, though, not the Pacific.
I just associate it with the UK. So across the pond.
He says I've had an idea for a new book in the series I'd like to share. It says it may sound like a cop out, but you could start a new book right from the end of book 7 after Roland shoulders his gun and sets off into the desert. He's going to be repeating his quest. We're all familiar with that. However, you could make some integral differences. For example, Roland reaches Tull and moves on after spending a brief day there, maybe engaging with the townspeople for information. No Sylvia Pittston, no massacre, and perhaps Roland's soul a little less damaged by the time he faces his tower. Of course, you need some kind of conflict or drama to make it interesting, but you can still have some random bar fights or deactivate the Man in Black's trap in a different way, or maybe the trap isn't in Tull but with Zoltan and Brown. Roland was expecting a trap with Brown after dealing with Tull, but there's no real. But if there's no real conflict in Tull, then perhaps his guard is down.
That's true. The other thing that you could do is there's the guy that comes up behind him in Tull at the bar. You could actually make that an actual physical confrontation and everything like that, where he doesn't just back down when Roland tells him to go sit down and enjoy his drink.
Yeah.
You could actually make that a confrontation there.
Yeah, exactly. He says there are heaps of ways you could change the journey in book 1 after Roland has the horn to make his soul more salvageable. This could obviously lead to the rest of the series, save for the Wizard and Glass, but even though we've already kind of know the journey, I'd still love to read another version of it. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. Sorry for the long email, but hey, it makes the episode longer. I'm always a fan of more palaver. As always, long days and pleasant nights. Signed, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
I mean, ultimately, I'm down, but I just don't.
If it's more Dark Tower, just hook it to my veins.
Yeah, it's just one of those things, though. I don't think we'd get it from King. It'd have to be from Joe Hill or something, because I just don't think. I think we got one more book out of King, probably. But I don't know about going through and rewriting the whole series. I think if that were the case, I think he probably would have done it already, like he did with book 1. Even though he didn't like rewrite it in a heavy way, he just kind of polished it a bit.
Yeah.
I think he's even mentioned before that like there's always been a thought to maybe go through and polish the rest of the books the way he did with that one.
He's like, it's just too much.
Not necessarily to rewrite them like Tom is saying here, but at least to kind of maybe do like more of a revised version. But yeah, it's just too big of a work. I don't think he would ever dive into that. But I mean. Yeah, if Joe Hill, for instance, wanted to do a 2.0 version of the Dark Tower, that would be something else.
Yeah.
Or we can get science to get some sci-fi stuff going and give King another couple hundred years.
I'm down with that, too. Just get his head like Futurama and just keep it in the thing and just let him just do text to speech.
Yes.
I mean, speech to text.
Yeah, indeed. I think that would be ideal.
Yeah.
Have King around for a long time.
Have him have one of those headsets in the fluid where he's able to talk and just write novels that way.
Yeah, the floating head Futurama stuff.
I mean, he could just get also one of those court transcribers and dictate the novels to them.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that's an email. That's the last of our emails for this year. Definitely feel free to send more in. So we'll have some for 2022. But yeah, that's going to be it for this episode. I mean, I guess this is our second time we've had a call-in show that nobody called in, but it's all good. I mean,
it's there.
The thing is with the chat, I think that's a big thing. Is now people have a chance to interact weekly. Mm-hmm. So I don't know that call-in is as maybe as desirable as it would have been back in the day when we weren't even doing things live. We were recording it, whatever day in the afternoon, and then it was getting posted days later after or whatever. Like it wasn't. There's no live element at all.
You also had to go through and edit it because there was times where it's like, hold on.
Yeah.
Let me try that again.
Yeah, that was the best part about going live is no longer having to edit. Just go live and freaking deal with your results. Like that's the way to do it. Because editing took longer sometimes than recording.
Yeah.
So
you get the uncut, unedited, raw Tad and Peter.
Yeah, indeed. So that's it for this episode. We'll have
for this year.
And for this year, yeah. So I'll remind everyone we will be back on the 15th of January and the 29th of January for starting the year off for 2022. And then we'll be that'll be our every other week. And I believe we have July is our 3-episode month next year. Technically, there would be one in January if we started on like January 1st.
Yeah, it would have been New Year's Day, which we talked about. That would have been bad to record an episode that day.
Yeah, I might be a little under the weather that day.
Glug, glug.
I mean, with the way the years have been going, there's no better way to bring in the new year than being drunk. That's all I'm saying.
Being completely drunk.
Yeah, let's just go at it. Freaking, why not? I mean, maybe that'll give some good, energy into the year to whatever. But yes, we're definitely waking up and recording that next day would probably be tough. So that would technically be 3 in that one, but we're going to start on the 15th instead. But we will be looking at 3 episodes in July. So that's what we're looking for 2022. So let's go ahead and hit the outro stuff real quick. and then we'll sign off. So if you want to subscribe and rate and review us on any of the podcasting services, we'd appreciate that. If you want to stream us, you can do it on Spotify or Stitcher. If you want to find the show notes, you can do that at darktowerpalaver.com. All the articles we covered today, I'll link in there, including that 1985 Washington Post article about the death of Richard Bachman. It's a great read. And that's what I love about the internet, too. It's like, dude, in the old days, you could not have found that unless you went to like some archive maybe that might have like a microfilm or something.
If you happen to get the article yourself.
Yeah. So exactly. Or like, someone has like a newspaper in a box or something. But like the fact that on the internet I was able to go, type the like Washington Post and that guy's name, and the first thing that came up was that article, and I was like, dude, I love this. Like the information at our fingertips is brilliant. I mean, not to mention the fact that we wouldn't be able to do a podcast.
Well, it's unreal. We were talking about this the other day at work. It's unreal how arguments have changed, or discussions even.
I'm surprised Guinness Book of the World Records is even still around. Like, wasn't that the whole point of that? Is to like solve arguments and shit.
Yeah.
And like now you don't need it.
Nope.
Just pull up your phone and Google.
Yeah, it's just like we've done it 2 or 3 times here. We couldn't remember the guy's name, David Morse in The Green Mile.
Yeah.
Had to look him up. We couldn't have done that if we were recording the show back for, radio in the 1990s.
Ham radio.
We'll get back to you on that next episode. Over.
Yeah, indeed. Man. So yeah, it's a beautiful thing. But yeah, and then if you want to support the show, you can do that on Patreon at patreon.com/darktowerpalaver. Got a lot of fun stuff coming up for the next year for that. And then if you want to interact with us, you can do that a number of ways that Peter can let you know about.
Best way to do that is email us at darktowerpalaver@gmail.com. You can find our shows. We record them live. It's youtube.com/darktowerpalaver. Like the video, subscribe, ring the bell to get notifications for when we're going live. And then our social media is facebook.com/darktowerpalaver. The Twitter is at darktowerpod. That's at darktowerpod. Our Instagram is darktowerpalaver, all one word, no spaces. And then check out our merchandise on TeePublic. It's teepublic.com/users/darktowerpalaver.
Yes, indeed. So we will sign off as we always do on the podcast here by saying long days and pleasant nights.
Long days and pleasant nights, folks.
All right. After I got a little silence recorded there, we'll go ahead and say goodbye to all you guys in the chat. Thank you guys for joining us. It's always fun to have you guys along with us with the conversation here. It looks like I was mispronouncing the name from Thinner. Apologies about that. Definitely haven't listened to that one. So.
Oh, were you?
I think there was someone that Vastech kind of spelling it in a way that can kind of help you pronounce it, whatever the word is for that. Cody, brown bottle flu or Captain Trips? Yeah, probably brown bottle flu. That's that's definitely New Year's Eve is one of those fun nights to bring in the new year in style.
So, yeah. Chris says, "Thanks, gentlemen, for another year of entertainment and palaver. Long days and pleasant nights." Thanks, Chris.
Yep,
always a pleasure. And I gotta say it because I'm a dad. We'll see you next year.
How dare you? How dare you? See,
that's a dad joke.
I'll try to edit that out to strike that from the record. Not to allow such garbage to exist on this show. Apologies to everyone for such nonsense.
I could have done it on the podcast actual. Then what would you have done?
How dare you? Well, what's even worse is those teachers. Oh, no more homework the rest of the year. And like if you don't think about it, you're like, oh, dude, the rest of the year, no more homework. You don't ever think about the fact that New Year's is coming up. Yeah. You just think it's school year, whatever. I hate that. But yeah, you guys are awesome. Thank you guys for joining us and being part of the conversation. It's definitely wonderful.
There's so many people here.
So many people I can't go through and list everyone, but everyone that joined us, thank you guys. You're awesome. And we will see you guys on the 15th of January for fresh episodes of 2022.
Yep.
And yeah, excited to see what we have in store for you guys.
Bye, everyone.
All right, see you guys.